Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались в кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страни.
Найкращий пастух баранячих отар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Їх доводи всяке озброєння різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів, робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там пивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить, хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ, тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
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 Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Русский военный корабль. Предлагаю сложить оружие и сдаться. Русский военный корабль, иди нахуй.
Наші
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
Ian, good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 799 of the news. And it's good to see you all once again. And Moscow is burning tonight. And it's good to see you all once again.
And of course, we're going to be covering the past 24 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine, as we have gotten major news that an attack has happened inside of Moscow, and an administrative building has been hit and has been caught on fire as a result of the attack. It is huge news, and not only that, other major Russian sites have been hit, knocked out, or destroyed today over the past 24 hours as well. A lot of news has been coming out about this. In fact, from what we can tell, at least 5 individual or 6 individual targets, separate ones, inside of Russia have been attacked, hit, and either very severely damaged or destroyed over just 24 hours. It is probably one of the biggest amounts of successful attacks in completely different areas of the Russian Federation that we have seen over the course of the entire war, and we're going to be getting into it immediately within the area of the city of Moscow. We were able to get a video clip of the aftermath of what happened, but what we've been told is that a Ukrainian drone or some other kind of a flying explosive, largely some sort of a drone, flew all the way into Russia, all the way through the Moscow air defense perimeter, and into the inner rings of the city of Moscow inside of the second inner ring road, and ended up hitting a major administrative building and catching it on fire as a result of the explosion. We were able to get a video of the aftermath. We have not been able to get any videos of the drones actually hitting the building. But here is the clip of the administrative building that was on fire.
Man, that's a pretty good fire right there. What's that like? It's burning pretty profusely right there in the middle. Like there's some type of munitions or something in the building. That's kind of weird.
It is really weird. It can't be munitions though, because the smoke does appear to be a gray or black color, suggesting that it is some kind of a non-ammunition based fire. But it is really interesting to see those large embers and sparks coming out of the building. We don't really know what those are in the fire, because that's actually fairly unique. Rarely ever is that seen inside of a fire, in anything for that matter. But nevertheless, we got to see another clip more up close to the building, showing the massive gaping hole that had been caused by the attack and the explosion on the side of the building, and the fire still lapping out of its sides as it begins to consume everything that's in the building.
That looks a little bit more serious than simply like a faulty microwave or something, too. It looks pretty intense.
It looks like it actually spans over several floors, maybe 2 to 3 floors, and that the hole that was caused by the explosion may cross over all of them, from what we can tell here. This is pretty impressive, I'm not going to lie, to see that a drone was able to make it this far in. Once again, we're largely going off of the information that we have been able to find. They say that the administrative and production building is on fire in Moscow, and this is apparently the exact location that it's in. It's called Leonardo Stone. So this is actually on the northeastern side of Moscow. So let me take y'all up there so that way we can take a look at this. So it's up around here, and let me make sure that we get this correct. It is kind of near this interstate intersection here, I believe. Actually, I believe it's a little bit further north than that, somewhere around here. And let's see if we can get a little bit closer to this. So it is right south of the nature reserve. So that would be this area right here. And so I think we're getting incredibly close to the Leonardo Stone building that we're seeing that's listed right here on this picture. We can look for a massive rail yard and also a couple of overpasses as well near to this area. And so let's see if we can find that here. This is almost like a game of GeoGuessr, I'm not going to lie. So let's see if we can find it. And this looks like the general area that it may have been in. And let me double check that again. Maybe? Why in the world is this so difficult to find? It's okay, you know what? We're just going to skip forward a little bit. We're just going to put this directly in. Right there, copy. And then paste. And this ought to get us straight to it. So there we go. So how far were we off? We were actually way far off. This is actually way deeper inside of Moscow than I believed it was. It is within the second ring road, like we said before, and it was this building right here. And from what we understand, this is some kind of an administrative building of a sort that is used by the Russian Federation inside of the city of Moscow, and that building has now been stricken, has caught on fire, and it also appears to show us something else that's incredibly interesting, or a very telltale sign about the Russian air defense perimeter. This drone flying in from Ukraine either would have had to have flown all the way around Moscow and then come in from the northeast, or it flew directly over Moscow, most likely over the very center, right over the Kremlin, and then to the target on the northeastern end of the city, if we are to believe that this is a drone. And largely the reports are indicating, although we don't have video or picture evidence of it being a drone, that there was the sound of some kind of an engine in the air, some kind of a two-stroke motor most likely, before the building exploded. So going off of that, a Ukrainian drone flew all the way through Moscow to the other side, hit a target, and was not shot down or engaged by air defense at a single moment, a single solitary moment the entire time. This is fairly significant news, not for the fact that the administrative building was hit. It's more so big news for the fact alone that it was able to fly all the way over the city of Moscow and into its northeastern side. And we're going to be putting this right there because that's actually where the hit was. And that is really shocking because from what we have been told, or at least what we've been led to believe throughout most of the war, the Russians have prioritized the Moscow air defense perimeter as a priority for air defense to be moved into. Russia is practically stripped of air defense in every single part of the country except for Moscow, St. Petersburg, and the Krasnodar region. Beyond that, all air defense systems have been moved into Ukraine, and even with them saying that there is an unbelievable amount of air defense in Moscow, this drone was still able to fly all the way into Moscow, through the literal center ring road, which is the most important part, pretty much the government district of Moscow, and into a administrative building near to a major rail yard, and not only that, the Yaroslavsky railway terminal right over here, which is one of the largest train stations within the Moscow area. It flew over that as well. This is absolutely unbelievable when you really hear about this, and it leads us to believe that the Russian air defense perimeters, even in Moscow, are greatly deteriorating in their quality or their strength, or they may be non-existent in the first place, and it's largely been a propaganda spin that has led us to believe at all that the air defense perimeter around Moscow may be formidable. But moving on from that,
I'm voting for the non-existent option. Like, I don't think they have any air defense of note around this place. And the few pieces we've seen, I think they might have maybe used those somewhere else at this point and sort of dragged them away. I bet Putin's house is protected though.
I would honestly have to agree with you, Matthew. I don't think the Moscow air defense perimeter existed outside of news circles or propaganda circles inside of Russia, because we've never really seen them defend the city at all. Even when Moscow City, which is right around, and let me see, it's right here actually. This is Moscow City, which is the financial district with all the pretty looking skyscrapers in it. Even when the Expo Center right over here got hit, and also some of the financial buildings got hit by Ukrainian attacks as well, we never saw a single air defense system active or trying to shoot this down. We saw for a small while on the outskirts of Moscow that some drones did get shot down, but those videos and pictures died many months ago, and we've never seen something like that happen again. But Matthew, there is a hit to the Russians that is even more devastating, even on a morale level, on a physical, tangible level, than what happened today on that administrative building right up here in the area of Moscow. Gazprom has reported for the first time in the company's history that it is losing money. It is, in fact, hemorrhaging money due to Western sanctions. And not only that, due to them having a massive loss of refineries that help them to be able to produce gas. Many people have been under a bit of a misconception that Gazprom is a natural gas company only. But let me really quickly pull this up. Because there is a little bit of interesting information here that we have to get out to all of y'all. And let's see here. Let's see.
Someone tried to flame me on this earlier today. By the way, someone on Twitter came at me pretty hard on this one. They said it's only a gas company. I'm like, no. It's actually both oil and gas. So I had to sort of like tell them, go to Google.
And also, this is it right here, because we have to clear this up, because this is something that some people are a little bit ignorant on Gazprom. Yes, it is a natural gas company, but Gazprom is also a large oil producer through its subsidiary, Gazprom Neft, producing about 41 million tons of oil with reserves amounting to 2 billion tons. So it is, in fact, a natural gas and oil producer. This is one of the most major and largest and most important companies in the Russian Federation. And not only that, the Gazprom is headquartered in the newest and biggest building in Russia, and it's also the tallest building within Europe, the Latka Center. This is actually the Gazprom company headquarters right outside of St. Petersburg. This is something...
I'm not going to lie, that's a pretty nice building, actually, but they'll probably end up having to sell it after the losses this year.
Oh, they probably will. And this is really the most shocking thing. This building alone and the amount of money it costs the Russians to build this thing, or really Gazprom to build this thing, gives you an idea of how powerful Gazprom is within the Russian economy, because they're really one of the few companies that has enough money to actually be able to fund modern advanced skyscraper projects like this inside of Russia. It gives you an incredibly clear idea that Gazprom is a massive mover and shaker of Russia, a lot like the auto industries in the United States were massive movers and shakers all the way up until about the late 2000s when they started to move overseas, and then they kind of became international companies instead of national organizations. But nevertheless, Gazprom is incredibly important to the Russian economy. In fact, it is a massive part of the Russia altogether. To put this into perspective really quickly, let me see how much profit they made. Operating income, well, actually revenue, as of 2020 was $87.7 billion. The Russian gross domestic product annually is $1.3 trillion. That means, and let's do the math there. Let me divide this. 87.7, and then we're going to divide that by, let's see, it would be like 1,300, I believe. Well, no, I don't think it would be. I think it'd be like 130. I'm not really sure. You know what? Let me just do the full numbers instead of trying to shorten them down a good bit. So let me do this. 87.7 billion, and let me make sure to get that just right. So there we go. 87.7 billion divided by 1.3 trillion. And let me make sure to put that in properly because we want to make sure to get the numbers right.
Gotta get those numbers right. I'm telling you what.
That means that roughly Gazprom accounts in actual revenue alone, not including their net income and everything like that, just revenue alone, they account for 7% of the Russian economy as a singular company. That shows you how big they are inside of Russia, how powerful of a company this is. If this company went under, a lot of the Russian economy is going to feel that hit, and they're going to start going under as well. And what is even crazier about this is that today, Gazprom did admit that they are plunging into the worst loss in decades. And not only that, an additional part of that statement is that they are losing money, and they are hemorrhaging money right now. Due to gas sales collapsing in Europe, they do not have viable economic partners anywhere else in the world that purchased Gazprom gas at the prices that the Europeans were buying it at. So while the Russians are still exporting gas somewhere around the world, either to India or other countries such as that like China, they're not buying it at the same price the Europeans were buying it. This means that Gazprom is losing money fast. If Gazprom collapses, the Russian Federation's economy may be pulled down with it. The company is so big that it makes up, and we have to remember this again, 7%, some people actually did the math and said it was about 8% of the Russians' gross domestic product annually as a singular company. If that company goes under, the entire Russian economy may go under with it, or that may begin a massive economic depression in the Russian Federation because so many jobs and so much economic movement will just be thrown into the wind. So that is something that I would have to say is very interesting. Probably one of the biggest hits and the biggest bits of news that we've gotten from inside the Russian Federation that is really showing how bad the economic situation is at the moment. And a lot of people have been talking about what has caused this loss for Gazprom. Some people are saying that it may have been Western sanctions finally catching up to Gazprom, and the books could only be cooked so well, and now they're being burned on the fire. Some people are saying this is due to the Ukrainian drone attacks hitting some Gazprom refineries and knocking out a large part of their profit margins that they make on an annual basis. Some other people are saying that it might be a mix of both of those things really culminating to create the perfect storm for Gazprom to start collapsing financially. And some people aren't really sure what is causing the collapse of Gazprom, but they just know that it's not good for Russia and it's not good for one of the largest companies in Russia as well. But Matthew, what do you think about this, and what is everyone else thinking about the situation right now?
So on this poll, we asked the audience, we said Russia's Gazprom oil/gas company posts the worst losses in over a decade, and what is the main cause? And it looks like about 41% said it's both Western sanctions catching up and also Ukrainian drone attacks, a mixture of that. And only 22% said solely because of the drone attacks by Ukraine, and 30% said it's only because of Western sanctions. And in my opinion, I think it's a pretty even mix of both of those because the Western sanctions will have an effect on Russia. We've sort of seen a really delayed effect by the sanctions, but it seems like now they're probably catching up a little bit. And also, obviously, all the Ukrainian drone attacks on these refineries are putting the hurt on Russia as well. So between those two things, the Gazprom is hurting very, very bad. This is their worst loss since 1999. So a long time ago, they posted a loss like this. And obviously, the oligarchs who are involved with Gazprom are going to be getting very angry at their boss, Putin, about the situation. So that could cause some dissent amongst the oligarchs as well, because this is going to hurt their pocketbook. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that Gazprom going under is one of the most serious things that we've heard in recent times. Gazprom, as the natural gas company, is the largest provider of natural gas in the world. It's the largest company in Russia by revenue. I just made sure to get that correct. So this is Russia's Amazon for the large part right now. This is their largest company inside of the entire country. If this thing went under, it would be pretty bad. The subsidiary, Gazprom Neft, which is the oil side of Gazprom, is even a pretty big hitter of its own. It's actually the third largest producer of oil in the Russian Federation and accounts for 12% of their oil production and also oil refining, oil refining inside of Russia annually. These two companies, really Gazprom as a whole and their subsidiaries, are the largest companies inside the Russian Federation by far. These companies going under is going to be a massive hit to the Russians, and it appears that Western sanctions, along with the Ukrainian drone attacks, are starting to drive the nails into the coffin for Gazprom, and if Gazprom goes under, it's going to be incredibly bad. Also, by the way, another thing that would be important to share with y'all is that Gazprom is a majority state-owned company. At least the actual Gazprom itself, not Gazprom Neft, but Gazprom is a state-owned company. So that is a very interesting thing to point out, is that a state-owned company in the Russian Federation, or a majority state-owned company, is hemorrhaging money, because that shows that the Russian government probably doesn't have the ability at the moment to try and subsidize the operation of Gazprom, and that may also be adding in an additional bombshell that the Russian government has completely run out of funds to be able to subsidize Gazprom and cook their books anymore. So they're now just having to let them hemorrhage the money and pray to God that they don't end up collapsing before the war ends. So this is huge news. This is massive news. This is actually bigger than the drone attack in Moscow in its actual impact on the Russians. And not only that, y'all will probably be blown away to hear how many employees Gazprom and Gazprom Neft employs. Gazprom, the parent company, has 466,000 employees. Gazprom Neft has 57,000 employees. So combined, the size of Gazprom, it is twice the size of the Russian army that's currently in Ukraine right now, and the number of employees that they have.
That's impressive. From just a standpoint of the amount of employees, that's wild. But also, one more thing I just thought of is, hasn't recently some of the European countries actually cut off from buying Gazprom gas? Like, they've actually backed off from it and totally backed away from Gazprom?
Yes, many countries, including the Germans, backed away from Gazprom and just started to source out their gas from other countries. So we believe that Gazprom will never be able to get the kind of profits that they were getting at the beginning of the war again, as many European countries has finally learned that buying gas from a rival of the West, or really an enemy of the West, is not that great of an idea long term and isn't really that sustainable. So now they're moving on to other natural gas sources, and they're leaving Gazprom in the dust. So in reality, even if Gazprom survives the war, they probably will not survive the fallout from the war, which led to most of their customers going and picking other sources of natural gas, which will probably lead to a whole bunch of economic consequences of its own in the future. We'll probably see a whole bunch of countries become very wealthy here in the near future because they're selling the gas to the Europeans instead of the Russians, but this is the end of Gazprom for the large part. They are probably going to be going down and out after this one. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, and it's time for us to move on into what may be causing Gazprom profits to tank. In the area of Smolensk today, we got to see that a fire broke out. From what we understand, it was most likely attached to some kind of an oil silo, but here's the clip. Smells like mama's home cooking. But it's
Cooking
burning
with oil?
Man, I mean, like, I always thought that that Mama cooked with oil. Like that, I always thought it was like some kind of nice Gazprom oil, maybe. But anyways, that's the end of that clip. Nice to see that they were able to hit a little silo up there. And moving on from that and down into another area of the country, if the map loads, and thank you, map, for loading, we
got some lag out here, I'm telling you what.
Man, we got some of that juicy lag. But moving on from that and down into the area of Krasnodar Krai, or specifically Nefikachka, we were able to see that an oil refinery down here ended up having a little explosion because a drone ended up hitting it and causing some damage. Here's the clip. We hear the drone. We can hear the explosion. The car alarms. We can hear the devil behind the camera. It's just like, okay. Thank you, Satan, for sharing your input. but nevertheless, the refinery got hit. It went up in cinders. Another refinery was knocked out. This is a fairly interesting thing because we're starting to see that the refinery attacks are wildly common these days, and they're not going away anytime soon. It appears that the Ukrainians are going with the strategy of this. This is the best way I can explain it. If they hit Russian oil refineries, and if Russia has no gas to be able to fuel their armed forces with, the war will end because they will have no way to fight it. That appears to be the going Ukrainian strategy at the moment. And I would have to say, I think that might end up working. I think that might be what actually pushes the Russians out of the war, is that their entire economy pretty much revolves around the oil industry. And really quickly, let me go to the Russian GDP. Because someone actually brought up a little bit earlier today, they said, you stupid cretin, their economy isn't made up of 70% oil, it's their exports, and that's a totally different thing. And so we have to go and look really quickly at what makes up most of the Russian economy. So, let's see here. Wow, that inflation rate was juicy, Matthew. Look at that. The inflation rate back in the day, back when the Soviet Union collapsed, a sweet 1,100% during some months of 1993. That's juice.
It's kind of weird, though. Their inflation hasn't really risen in the recent years, though. Like 2022 is barely registering on the chart.
Man, that's because they're cooking them books. You wait until the books aren't being cooked anymore, and you'll see that it starts to skyrocket. But let's see here. Let's see. We need to find the exact info, like a pie chart, hopefully, about what the Russian economy runs the most off of. So let me see what we got here. Public policy, that's wonderful. And let's see, energy, key oil and gas supplier to much of Europe, that changed. Let's see here, Rosneft, agriculture. Can we get a graph? I would love to see a graph. Do they have one? Here we go. Oh, that's information technology. That's not what we're looking for. There's got to be some. Okay, hang on, everyone. I got to go. Russian GDP pie chart. Let me see if I can get that. So, so here we go. I was able to finally find the graph. This is it from ResearchGate. This is the Russian economy, not the export market. This is just what they make their money off of, their annual GDP off of every single year. 54% of the economy runs on oil and petroleum products. 83%, that number is wrong, but 83% is other. That looks more like 30-something%. And then natural gas wait. I don't know what this is. I don't think this is a good graph. So let's just go to images and let's see if we can find
Wait a minute, the numbers didn't add up. Did you notice that?
Yeah,
like,
I know.
The numbers were well over 100%.
That's what I was looking at. It's like a Willy Wonka graph. I was like, we can't read that. But let's see here. There's got to be one that breaks down. Okay, so, let's see. Extraction of raw materials, manufacturing, trade. This one doesn't seem that correct either because oil isn't even listed on this as anything that makes them money. So let me see. I'm about to give up on this because the graphs are unfindable. Like, okay, so wait, hang on. Here we go. So, according to this graph in 2014, which I feel is probably going to be the best one that we can go off of right now, 41% of the Russian economy revolves around crude oil and gas. 20.3% revolves around refined oil products. So going off of those two alone, which are oil and gas related, the Russian economy is 61% reliant on the gas and oil industry for the money they make annually. And then the rest of the economy makes up the remainder of the 40%. So going off of that, if the Russian gas and oil industries go under, or even if one of the major companies like Gazprom went under, the impact is going to be very serious. And it's going to have massive economic impacts. And not only that, it's going to have a major impact on the Russian military. The reason why I'm bringing up that Russia is really a single product economy or a monolithic economy is that monolithic economies are very fragile and are not good economies. A great example of that actually would be Cuba, leading up before the Cuban Revolution and the foundation of a Cuban communist state. Cuba was a independent country that was largely a protectorate of the United States, and during that time, Cuba's main export was sugar. But the United States decided to protect our internal sugar producers, and this is actually kind of a really cool rabbit hole that I'll explain some for all of y'all. They all may or may not know, but because of Cuban sugar being so cheap compared to American sugar, and America was buying in such large amounts, a law was actually passed that put a pretty prohibitive tariff on foreign sugar imports. And so Cuba was destroyed by this tariff because Cuba's entire economy, I believe it was something like 70% of the economy was in the sugar business. Everything, 70% of the economy revolved around them producing sugar. If they were not producing sugar, the economy was going to collapse. And when the tariffs hit and America stopped buying the sugar, because we were really the ones who were buying the most of it, Cuba's economy collapsed pretty much overnight and went into a massive recession, which is really what led to the kindlings and the flames inside of Cuba for people to be unhappy enough that a Cuban revolution would begin a little bit later on. But getting to that, to share it with y'all, just one more interesting fact about that has absolutely nothing to do with the war in Ukraine. But that's why in America, almost everything that has a sugary taste to it uses corn syrup. Because even though we banned foreign imports of sugar to protect internal sugar producers in the United States, there still is not enough sugar production in America to be able to give everything raw cane sugar or any kind of sugar that is made out of normal cane sugar or something along those lines. So a lot of companies had to find a substitute for sugar that they would have been getting in the past. And what they did is that they went with the next best thing that was a lot cheaper and a lot more abundant, which is corn syrup, which its main product is corn. The United States can grow an endless amount of corn, and the corn syrup ends up being as sweet, if not sweeter, than actual real sugar. So it ended up being the perfect alternative, and that's why in the United States, almost everything that tastes sweet has a lot of corn syrup in it. It's for that reason. But anyways, getting off of that whole rabbit hole, because that's a really neat thing about history and how the sugar industry, or really the sugary products industry, has worked in the United States. Getting off of that, Cuba is a perfect example of how a monolithic economy can collapse, and because of that collapse, it can lead to major governmental and societal changes. And inside the Russian Federation, they have the exact same structure, considering that they work almost entirely off of the oil and gas industry to make money annually. If that part of the economy went under, the whole of Russia goes under with it. There is no such thing like in America where one sector can go down, like say the automotive sector just implodes on itself like it did in the late 2000s. And then they get bailed out, but that's beyond the point. When they went under, yes, it hurt the economy a little bit, but it didn't really hurt it a lot because the automotive industry only made up, I think, 8 to 10% of the U.S. GDP at the time annually. And so while it did hit the economy, it wasn't a major hit like it would be for the Russian oil and gas industry to go down, making up 61% of the economy. So that's kind of the big thing. In a really interesting fact to talk about with monolithic economies and how fragile they can be. Russia is probably one of the most fragile ones in the world right now that is a larger country. There are loads of smaller countries that are monolithic economies, but then they all kind of just mix into the background. They're not really that important to talk about. But with the Russians, it is important to talk about, and it's going to probably end up coalescing into a major economic collapse here in the near future. Moving on from that and into the area near the Sumy border region, we were also able to see that the Ukrainians hit and destroyed some Buk reloading systems and a Buk missile system today near to the area of the border. Here's the clip of the Ukrainian drone knocking out these systems. And bada boom, baby!
A wing drone. Very nice. Very nice. They rebuked that one very well.
Man, the Buk sounds like that. Like if the Buk had a voice, it's like the guy that filmed the oil refinery explosion. It goes, it's like, oh, it's like that's
Rebuke.
I rebuke you. I rebuke you. But anyways, we get to see the Buke blowing up. It's going up in a nice pyre. And that thing is burning profusely. They have missiles on board, so that's why it's burning a large amount. And you can also see the other Buke just right next door over here, fervently sweating because it knows it's next. We didn't get to see it get hit, but you know that that one's probably the next target for the next drone that's coming in. But with that, we're now going to be moving on from that little clip and out of the Russian Federation for a brief moment because we've gotten some interesting news from Europe. And we've also gotten one thing because I want to make sure that y'all keep up to date on at least a general overview of what's about to happen in the Middle East, because we're probably going to start covering the Middle East a lot on this channel here in the near future again. But moving on into the city of Paris, France, the capital of France. In case y'all didn't know, I'm sure everyone knew that. French troops may be going to Ukraine under a wider umbrella of a reason than we've heard in the past. In the past, Macron has said that French troops will enter Ukraine if the Russians threaten the city of Odessa or the city of Kyiv. If either of those cities were to be threatened directly by the Russian military, the French army would enter on the side of Ukraine. Now it's changed from those fairly niche situations or events into that of if a Russian breakthrough happens at the front and Ukraine requests our support, we're entering immediately. So that is a broad widening of the French moving into Ukraine, and it's once again showing that the French are starting to inch their way closer into trying to find a way to get the French army into Ukraine and justify it in one way or another. Fairly interesting move, I'm not going to lie. And Macron has started to make these statements a lot lately. We've already heard the statements that they're 100% behind supporting Ukraine now, not on the diplomatic level, but on the martial level. And it appears that, once again, he's starting to make these statements a little bit more. Some people are wondering if he's really serious about this or not. Some people think that he's bluffing the Russians to try and make them be a little bit concerned about making any kind of frontline advances in Ukraine. Other people believe that Macron is 100% serious about this and that he would move French forces into Ukraine and support the war effort directly with French armed intervention. Some people have doubts about it in general, and some people don't really know what to think about Macron's statements. But Matthew, what are you thinking about it, and what is everyone else thinking about this right now?
All right, so on this poll, we said Macron reiterates that he'll send troops to Ukraine's front line if Russia breaks through, or it's requested, and is Macron serious? 48%, the overwhelmingly popular option here, says Macron is 100% serious about it. 24% said Macron is simply bluffing Russia, and 18% said, I have some doubts, but I need some more info. And on this one, we do have to acknowledge that Macron has said in the past and made it seem like French troops were ready to go right into Ukraine if they wanted them to go in. That obviously apparently did not happen because it hasn't been reported on, so we'll have to sort of assume it never really occurred. But at the same time, though, Macron's saying now that if Ukraine even simply asks for French troops to be in Ukraine, then they'll send them in. So that's a pretty hardline statement right there, and to back out of that would be quite extreme. Also very odd for France to just simply back out after saying something like that. So I'm sort of having some doubts. I need some more info, so I'm with the 18%, but I'm leaning toward that maybe he is serious about it, because that would be a hell of a bluff if he backed out of it. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say, I believe he's actually serious. The French are a very interesting country when it comes to what they've done historically in Europe, either as a NATO member or not as a NATO member, because for quite a long time they actually got out of NATO. They left NATO and were doing their own thing, and then they rejoined NATO fairly recently. But beyond that, I would have to believe that the French are quite serious about getting involved in Ukraine if the Ukrainians ask, because in the past they have shown that in places like Western Africa, they are starting to get a lot more involved in armed action down there than they ever really have been in the past, especially after what happened in Algeria back in the day. I'm not going to go over that because that is like such a long rabbit hole that we would never leave that. We would be in that in the entire stream. But beyond that, they've really started to get a lot more heavily involved in Western Africa, where French holdings used to exist, because France actually used to control most, if not all, of Western Africa, save a few areas like Morocco, which was controlled by Spain, and I believe Nigeria, which was also controlled by the United Kingdom. And I think a couple of other areas along the African coast were controlled by the United Kingdom as well. I know that Liberia was actually purchased by the United States, of all places. But beyond that, moving on from that, we know that the French are probably really serious about this statement. They're probably going to back it up, in my opinion. It's and also a lot of people always go off of the joke, and I feel like this is such a bad reputation that France got from World War II, that the French are a joke when it comes to fighting. The French are fairly well not a joke, in my opinion, going off of historically how well they've always performed in war. France has actually won more battles in history than any other country in the world has. Not Britain, not America, it is actually France. I wish I could actually get the number broken down, but that would be a rabbit hole and would take some time. But beyond that, France is a serious country when it comes to war. France is a serious country when it comes to anything. And so going off of that, I would have to say that these kinds of statements aren't just bluffs, they are serious, because it would look really bad and France would lose a lot of face if Zelensky really did request French armed intervention in Ukraine and then they backed out. It would show that the French are a joke, and then they wouldn't be taken seriously inside of Europe, because we also have to understand that Macron is wanting to try and create a subsphere within the Western sphere of the European Union. He wants to make Europe pretty much completely separate from the United States and not really a joint hegemony around the world, but more so a separate sphere of its own. And to be able to do something like that, he will have to be able to show that France has the balls, without lack of a better term, to be able to back up Europe militarily and lead them with a strong fist. And for that reason alone, I certainly think that he is quite serious about these claims, and he's trying to show to the rest of the European nations that Europe can do it on its own, and that they should be more apt to try and create their own mini-sphere within the Western sphere. And so with that, I hope that does address that incredibly well, at least in my opinion. And with that, we're now going to be moving on into something else from right across the channel from France in the United Kingdom that was made as a statement by the British foreign minister today. The British foreign minister, funnily enough, is a former prime minister, but the British foreign minister stated that Ukraine has the right to strike Russian territory with British weapons. That is a bombshell statement today, because up until now, no Western country has allowed their weaponry to be used on Russian soil. Every single one of them has forbade it. It was verboten. It was something that just simply would never happen. And now we are hearing that the British foreign minister, which we understand has largely been the minister to be able to tell Ukraine where they can strike targets, is now saying publicly that they can strike any targets in Russia they want with British weapons. This may be changing the precedent, because usually the British are the trendsetters with the war in Ukraine, with how support is sent and how it's used. They may be trend-setting right now, and we may see that those kinds of restrictions that have been laid out by the Germans, the French, and the Americans, as well as the Poles, may be lifted, and now Ukrainians can use Western weapons inside of Russian territory. There is a decent amount of risk that comes along with this. The Russians could try and insinuate that the West is directly attacking Russia through proxy because they're now using Western weapons against Russia, but it appears that the United Kingdom has weighed the risk of that happening and has decided that that is most likely unlikely, or if the Russians do make a statement like that, they're most likely not going to follow through on any of those statements or claims that they would be making. So going off of that, I would have to say this is something that is major and game-changing, and we'll have to see if the Ukrainians follow through with this brand new announcement that they've gotten from the British, and see what they start to do with British weapons like the Storm Shadow. They may even start to use the Storm Shadow to strike targets deep behind the lines like Voronezh or other major manufacturing cities that are near to the Ukrainian border. They may even use them to attack Krasnodar or Rostov-on-Don. Hell, considering that they can use Western weapons such as the Storm Shadow with British weapons such as the Storm Shadow, they may even fire one towards the the southwestern military district headquarters at Rostov-on-Don, which is well within Storm Shadow range at the moment, and that may lead to a complete decapitation of Russian command and control abilities over the Russian armed forces inside of Ukraine for a while, maybe several days or weeks. But with that, I hope that addresses that the best I can, at least gives an overview and a summary of what this may mean for the war in Ukraine and what this means for British support in the future. But beyond that, a lot of people have been talking about this in the chat, and a lot of people have been sharing their thoughts. And a lot of people are thinking that Ukraine will begin to attack Russia with British weapons immediately, without further delay, as the foreign minister for East Germany said on the day that the Berlin Wall came down, which was a complete misstatement, and the Berlin Wall wasn't supposed to come down that day, but because he misspoke, it did. But beyond that, some people have been saying that Ukraine has already been doing that. Ukraine has already been striking deep inside of Russia with British weapons. It's just that the public statement came out now, and now they're going to be publicly doing that. Some people say that Ukraine will probably hold off for a little bit and not use those weapons, instead conserving them for a later date, and some people don't really know what to think about this. But Matthew, what are you thinking about it, and what is everyone else actually thinking about this?
So, on the question of how Ukraine's going to use the British weapons in the future, now that the restrictions have been lifted off of those weapons, it looks like 66% says Ukraine will begin using them on Russian territory immediately. 22% said Ukraine's probably already been doing it, and 5% said Ukraine will hold off. And one thing I'm pretty confident about is if you give Ukraine the green light to do something, they're going to go ham. So I think it's going to happen pretty quickly, and they're going to probably do it in a rapid succession and probably a lot. So I'm with the 66%. I think it's going to be happening right now. And honestly, I would not be shocked if maybe they've already done that in the past in a limited fashion. I wouldn't be shocked personally, but they'll certainly start doing it now. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say they're certainly going to start using British weapons in any way they can, because they're given the announcement to do it. There would be no reason to hold back and wait, because that means they're only missing opportunities that they could have already taken advantage of now that they can use these weapons. So going off of that, I think that we're probably going to see British weapons flying into Russia probably within the next few days, maybe even within this week for sure, and we'll start to really get a lot of interesting news to cover on that, because if y'all thought Russian air defense was wholly incompetent now, wait until they go up against a stealth missile like the Storm Shadow flying through Russia. That's going to be a lot more difficult to deal with. But with that, I hope we were able to address that incredibly well. And with that, it is now time for us to start moving on into some of the Crimean news, because we haven't even gotten out of all of the attacks that Ukraine has. Well, actually, really quickly, we actually have to circle down to the Middle East really quickly to let y'all know something that will be happening here within the next few days or the next few weeks. We have gotten an announcement now, and we kind of touched on this a few days ago, that Israel gave an ultimatum to Hezbollah that either they withdraw from the territory of Lebanon, or they're going to invade the southern part of Lebanon and create an occupational zone where they will continue to uproot and destroy Hezbollah forces, and they'll also be attacking and destroying Hezbollah forces if they move further north into the areas north of Beirut and towards Tripoli or anywhere else. We have heard that apparently that Hezbollah has not left the area, which is not shocking at all, and we're now hearing that Israel is planning a ground invasion into Rafah in the southern Gaza Strip, and also into southern Lebanon at the exact same time. So going off of that, this is going to probably start heating up the situation inside the Middle East incredibly well. We already know that the Iranians want to make sure that their terroristic organizations that they're supporting will exist by the end of this proxy war that's happening this year. And that means that now that Israel is directly threatening the last holdouts of Hamas fighters within the Gaza Strip, and they're now going to be moving into Lebanon and attempting to knock out and destroy the Hezbollah forces that are there, this will most likely provoke the Iranians into launching another strike, if possible, on Israel, and this will once again heat up the regional war that we know is currently ongoing. But it hasn't really been an active action phase of this conflict for a few weeks. So going off of this, we have a fairly good idea that war in the Middle East will be picking up again. It was really just a few weeks break, and we'll be seeing that this will become a pretty large regional war. It will not be a world war, it will be a major regional war, but still, we do know that that is now once again on the horizon, most likely in between Israel and Iran, due to the now clear invasion that's going to be happening inside of southern Lebanon. But moving on from that quick overview, it's now time for us to get back to all of the targets that Ukraine has stricken and destroyed inside of Russia. And in the area of Dzhankoi, we finally got some satellite pictures showing us what the attacks a few days ago did, and it appears that another S-300 and S-400 battery in the area of Dzhankoi was hit and destroyed. It appears that the Ukrainians are using ATACMS missiles to target and destroy as many surface-to-air missile defense systems that they can inside of Crimea, once again showing that they have a strategic purpose to these attacks, and that is to try and greatly whittle down the amount of air defense that the Russians have that is usable, so that way they may be able to use the F-16s that they're getting in the future a lot more often and a lot more effectively than they would if those surface-to-air missile defense systems were active. Moving on from that news and into the area of Bryansk, we were also able to hear that a Russian repair factory blew up because of a Ukrainian attack onto the repair facility. From what we understand, the repair facility was called the Dormash, I believe, which sounds like some kind of a weird dish. But nevertheless, let me see here. This is the fire that we saw inside of Berdyansk from the plant, and I'll actually be able to show y'all the Dormash factory, which is a really weird name, but I'll be able to show it to y'all in the southwestern area of the city. This building right here is the Dormash plant, which is used to repair and get operational many Russian main battle tanks and armored personnel carriers that have been nearly damaged to the point that they've been knocked out of action in the war in Ukraine. This means that Russian logistical and repair efforts are going to be greatly diminished, and this will once again be leading the Russians into having a even larger armor shortage, considering that they're not even able to repair the damaged vehicles now, and they'll just be sitting around and waiting for a repair facility to once again be operational, or at least enough repair facilities to be operational that they can keep up with the amount of incoming needed repairs. So moving on from that great news inside of Berdyansk, it is now time for us to move on up into the area of Ukraine itself and actually into the frontline action news that has been happening over today. Moving on into our location unknowns, we were able to see a picture of a Ukrainian Mi-24, and what's really cool is that it has this floral pattern on the side, which looks kind of drippy, I'm not going to lie.
It looks pretty good, man. I like that.
I'm going to call this helicopter from here forward Babushka's rug. It's like, wait, no, better yet, it's Aladdin's carpet, Matthew.
Aladdin's carpet. That's
Yeah.
also very creative.
I like it, man. I think it's good. And this thing is like a genie, Matthew. It grants Russians wishes, or it turns Russians into genies, because they end up looking like little ghosts after this thing's done with them. But still, really cool
Please
picture.
put me out of my misery, Bliat. If I had one wish, it'd be to put me out of the misery, Bliat.
Please. Let me. But anyways, moving on from that little bit of news, on into our next bit, we also got to see that the Russians really are dropping that chloropisrin, which is the R. Kelly version of chemical warfare. But this is actually chloropicrin, and we were able to get some picture evidence today, well, video evidence actually, that they are using chloropicrin on Ukrainian forces. So here's the clip. And we're going to be muting the trap remix music, but we can see them dropping the grenade. It's really a tear gas grenade down there, and we now see that it's gone off, and it's now starting to distribute chloropicrin into this dugout. We can see Ukrainian forces running away from the cloud of chloropicrin that is now formed and trying to get as far away as possible.
Kind of interesting how the Russians are filming this war crime on camera.
It really is. You can see this guy here, he's gasping for air. And we see the drone just observing. This is in fact filming a war crime, according to the Geneva Convention, because the use of any kind of chemical weapons in war is completely forbidden. And a lot of people are going to be saying, wait a minute, what? Like, you know, in protests, well, not in protests, but in riots, cops use tear gas a lot to break up riots. Yeah, that's because it's not a war. So technically, chemical warfare in riot control is completely legal. It's completely permissible because tear gas is a form of chemical warfare. But in war, it's completely forbidden. It's considered inhumane. And we can see here that the Russians are starting to use chloropicrin. We're actually getting video and picture evidence still showing that that is a thing that's happening. And the United States came out yesterday and made a statement that that the Russians were in fact violating the Geneva Convention by using these sorts of chemical weapons. And we can see the Ukrainians here appearing to try and don gas masks so that way they're not that affected by what's going on here, but nevertheless, still video evidence of the Russians actually committing war crimes against Ukrainian forces. Moving on from that, we did get to see, however, that while many Russians appear to start committing war crimes against the Ukrainians, many of them didn't really get to see the war crimes being carried out today. And, oh, dang!
Oh my goodness, man. So many losses. Look at that. 8 Bobcats today, man. There's 12 to go before we hit 2,000. We'll just celebrate then.
Man, celebrate good times. Come on. But anyways,
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah, baby! But 8 Bobcat skid steers were completely obliterated over the past 24 hours. Not only that, 1,030 Russian soldiers were wounded and killed over the past 24 hours, along with 29 armored personnel carriers, 49 supply trucks, 20 main battle tanks, 20 artillery pieces, 23 drones, 4 anti-aircraft warfare systems, and 8 special equipment vehicles. Altogether, today was an incredibly good day in the loss report. It is once again showing that the Russians are taking incredibly high losses for any amount of ground that they're gaining. And while the Russians are gaining small amounts of ground on a daily basis near to the Avdiivka direction of the battlefield, they are taking significantly high losses in turn. Once again, meaning that they're not really gaining a lot out of the land. It's not a net positive for the Russians. It's either a net neutral or a slightly net negative result for them, considering the losses that they're still sustaining at the moment, which we already know are going to be unsustainable through the remainder of this year. So this is a very good sign, and once again showing that the Ukrainians are doing incredibly well on the defensive warfare side of things. But moving on from that and out of the Russian casualty report from the Kyiv Independent, it is now time for us to move on into the frontline news, and we have a load of it, literally spanning from the very most northern areas all the way down into the left bank of the Dnieper River. A lot has happened today, and we also got to see something really concerning, honestly, around the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant today that was filmed as well. But before we get into all of this, we do have to circle back really quickly to what I talked about in the Middle East for a quick moment about Israel and what they were doing, preparing for the preemptive, well, not the preemptive, but the invasion into Lebanon. And not only that, the ground invasion into the area of Rafah in the Gaza Strip. A lot of people are saying that Israel is simply defending itself in this instance. Some people are saying that Israel wants to start a war, and some other people are kind of undecided and want more information about all of this altogether. But a lot of people have different opinions on this. And Matthew, what are you thinking about it, and what is everyone else saying about this as well?
So on the question here, it says Israel has resumed major airstrikes in Syria and prepares to possibly invade southern Lebanon. And what are your thoughts? It looks like 52% said Israel is simply defending itself, while 34% said Israel wants to start a war, and 8% said I need more information. And to me, I know I didn't put this option on there. We only have 4 options we can put on a poll, but it's a combination between Israel defending itself and also, I think, honestly, trying to start a war in some capacity. And honestly, at this point, I think it's justified because the proxy forces of Iran are still attacking Israel even to this day after that exchange between Iran and Israel occurred. Nothing has stopped, and in fact, I think they've gotten worse. And Iran is still doing shady business in the background while they're pretending like it's all over to attack Israel. So Israel's certainly not backing down. They're not de-escalating whatsoever, and they really can't because they're sort of caught right in a rock and a hard place right now, and they either have to attack the forces or basically hunker down and try to use air defense 24/7 to stop the missiles from coming in. So for me, I'm sort of in between. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say largely that Israel is defending itself, and I'll explain why. Because some people would say, "Oh, it looks like they're starting a war." The war's already begun. It's just that it's been a little bit quiet, and once again, people have kind of short memories. So then a lot of people think that it's a brand new war that Israel is starting right now. The reality of the matter is that the Lebanese government has very loose control over Lebanon. It's pretty much lawless outside of Beirut, and even inside of Beirut, government control is fairly light. The central government is in shambles, especially after the 2020 explosion in Beirut port, which led to an economic depression inside of Lebanon, and that also led to an even greater weakening of the central government's control on anything going on inside the country. Inside of southern Lebanon, Hezbollah has been building up forces for an incredibly long time, and they've been supported and funded by the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, which is a part of the Iranian government. Over the past few weeks, ever since the major exchange that's happening between Iran and Israel, we haven't been reporting this on this channel, but I've been making sure to keep up to date with this. Hezbollah has been endlessly barraging, bombarding, and attacking the Israeli Defense Forces positions that are along the border, and not only that, bombarding and attacking Israeli civilians in the area as well, leading to several wounded and I believe a very low number of killed in some instances. This has led the Israelis to finally say that the situation is getting so serious within the area of southern Lebanon that they have to try and knock out Hezbollah forces. Because what the Iranians have done is, as per usual, they found out they couldn't really attack Israel directly, so they're going to try and attack them with the proxy groups, Hamas and Hezbollah, and hope that eventually they wear down the Israelis or tick them off enough that they'll start to try and do something against Iran, and then Iran can look like the victim. That's why a lot of people are probably saying that it looks like Israel looks like it's about to start a war, because this is a typical part of the Iranian playbook, is to end up attacking quietly Israel through Hezbollah and Hamas, and then when Israel responds to those groups, then Iran paints out Israel to look like they're some kind of an aggressor, which isn't really the case here. From what we know, and I'll add a little bit more to this, from what we know, Israel is not planning on invading Lebanon and taking over the country. They plan on invading Lebanon and controlling the southern area of Lebanon in a temporary occupational zone, using the time to try and find Hezbollah strong points and destroy them, and also to try and find Hezbollah weapons caches and destroy those as well, along with any fighters that they can find on top of that. They'll then be conducting operations in the area of northern Lebanon, because Hezbollah will most likely shift a large amount of their fighters into the northern area of the country, which will still be out of Israeli control, and we'll probably see a large amount of Israeli airstrikes being conducted up in that area. Going off of all of this combined, we have a fairly good understanding that this is Israel once again trying to defend itself from a large amount of endless Hezbollah attacks that have been occurring over the past several weeks, and I can't really fault them for doing something along those lines. Not only that, considering that the Lebanese government has shown a complete ineptitude on dealing with Hezbollah, which is not an official part of the Lebanese government, but has a lot of political sway in Lebanon, therefore leading to no one doing anything about them, it does appear that direct Israeli action would be required to even try and put down Hezbollah for at least several years and quell the situation that's going on right now. So I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion, because I would actually have to go with a large majority that are saying that Israel is largely defending itself, and on top of that, we do have to support Western interests. Hezbollah is an Iranian-affiliated group, which means that they are clearly anti-Western. Israel is more so a Western-aligned group, and even if they weren't, Israel is about to end up dealing with an anti-Western force. So I largely have to support the side that is going to end up destroying or quashing an anti-Western group. So with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, at least based off of my knowledge and understanding of what's been going on in the region over there and how things are, I guess you could say, unfolding inside of Lebanon. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, Matthew, I believe we actually have a couple of questions from the live chat that would be very scrumptious to answer. So what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so our first question from the chat tonight was actually a super chat from BC Skyman, the channel legend, who has been here since the beginning almost. And he put in an $80 donation, and it left a couple of super stickers behind. And the one that I can still see is the YouTube creature jumping around, putting up the peace sign and saying victory. So thank you very much, BC, for that support. And Enforcer, what say you?
And thank you so much for the massive amount of support, BC Skyman, and helping this channel to keep on running. You're an absolute legend, BC Skyman, and I gotta thank you massively once again for always being here with this channel, helping us to keep this thing running, and helping us to make this thing a reality. If it wasn't for folks like you, BC Skyman, we wouldn't be able to keep this thing rolling day in and day out. And not only that, I hope that you receive soon the medical bandages that Matthew sent, and right now I'm trying to get up my medical bandages to send, so that way I can send them as well, because we cannot wait to see the Yellow State flag handed over, and also a large amount of bandages handed over with that flag as well to help out with the war effort. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that the best I can. And of course, long live the Lee Spring Army, and thank you for being an old guard of this Lee Spring Army as well, BC Skyman. And so with that, we are on to the next one, but thank you greatly once again.
Yes, indeed. And up next, we have a $50 super chat from James Karg, who says, how do y'all feel that Poland will be naming their Cummings Lightning IIs after the Winged Hussars? He says, I personally feel like that one Polish king's ghost is dancing with joy, and he and his knights are not forgotten.
One second, let me pull that up really quickly. The F-35 Lightning II. The Polish F-35 Lightning II. Oh, that's really cool. Oh, that is so cool. So they're actually not going to name theirs Lightnings. They're going to name them Hussars after the Polish Winged Hussars. Have you ever seen what a Polish Winged Hussar looks like, Matthew?
I haven't. When I was reading that, I was like, what is that? So I'd be curious to see it.
So, to describe this the best I can before I show it, because there has to be some exposition before I show what this is. So back in the day, back when the Turks were a big deal, or really not the Turks, it's more so the Ottomans, although everyone called them the Turks back then, even still, although they're completely different groups. Well, they're not really different groups, but y'all get the point. Anyways, the Ottomans were a bit of a big deal, and this thing called the Siege of Vienna happened, where the Ottomans ended up besieging the capital of Austria in Vienna, and I believe this was in the middle of the 1600s. And so the battle was going poorly. And also, when I say this, y'all, I'm not saying this on like a religious level. I'm just giving y'all the historical context at the time, because this is how they looked at it back in the day. The Ottoman Turks, or the Islamic nation, or the Islamics, for the large part of the Muslims, would probably be the best way to say it, were massively outnumbering the Christian forces, and it looked as though during this battle that the Muslims may end up winning and spreading Islam further up into the area of Central Europe, which was a great concern at the time because it was largely a religious or an ideological battle, and although just not that long before, Europe had already ended up fighting its own battle of Protestants and Catholics, which was a whole other thing that was literally going on at the exact same time. Really, everyone started trying to unify to stop the push of the Turks upwards and inwards into this area of Central Europe. So the Viennese, or really the Austrians, were kind of on their own for a bit in the siege, but during one of the later parts of the siege, they actually engaged in a battle, and I believe, if I remember correctly, the Austrians sallied forth from the defenses of the city and actually ended up going into the battlefield to engage the Turks and fight them because their supplies were about to run out. So, during this battle, a miracle happened. A massive wave of tens of thousands of Polish cavalrymen, which had very rarely been seen before, came charging over a hill, surprising everyone on the battlefield, and on their backs were these massive wings. They were wings made of white feathers of swans, and they looked unbelievable. This force alone pretty much wiped out the Ottoman armies that were besieging Vienna and forced them into a route further down into the areas of Central Europe, which is where the Ottoman Empire would largely end up staying all the way up until their collapse in 1918 at the end of World War I. Also, another cool thing is that it's actually rumored, this is a really cool part of this, like a small side note about this, is that this is actually where coffee comes from for Europe. Like, if you ever see European coffee culture, it actually comes as a result of the Siege of Vienna, according to the folktales. Because when the Turks were defeated and left, they left behind a massive amount of coffee beans. And so the Viennese decided that they would start roasting them and figure out how to make coffee out of them, because coffee wasn't a common thing in Europe at that time. And because of that, the Viennese coffee houses became a thing, which are now actually an UNESCO World Heritage Site and a cultural icon of Austria, which is a really cool fact that came out of the battle. But beyond that, the Polish winged hussars looked like this.
Oh, so they're on the horses. Very interesting.
Yeah, they were horse-mounted cavalry that had these wooden canes mounted to their backs that were covered in white swan feathers that gave them the look that they had wings. And so that's where the name comes from, of the Winged Hussars. And so they're going to be naming the F-35 Lightning II the Hussar in honor of the Winged Hussars. So that is incredibly cool. A really cool homage.
Nice. That is pretty cool. I like it when they give aircraft like names that actually have meaning behind it, not just something that sounds cool like a Raptor or something like that. Like give it an actual historical name. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean this is incredibly cool. Also, this is a reenactor, and this is a little slightly inaccurate. Now, this is actually more accurate than the painting in one way, because he actually has a lance, which is what the winged hussars used. But he's using some kind of brown feathers, which is not historically accurate. From what we were told, it was mostly white swan feathers. Brown feathers were very rarely used, and they really only used as a substitute. But beyond that, it is really cool to see this. Also, here's a painting from the time showing the winged hussars as well. But it is incredibly cool. Just really neat to know they're going to be naming them after the Winged Hussars, because the Winged Hussars are wildly famous around the world. I mean, it's one of the most famous things from Poland are these Hussars, because of their incredibly unique appearance of the wings that they had on their armor. Also, another cool thing that comes from the Winged Hussars is honestly my favorite helmet of the era, which is the lobster tail, and let me make sure to put this in right, pot helmet. And I'm not kidding, that's literally the name that it's been giving. The helmet is called the lobster-tailed pot helmet, and I think it is actually the coolest helmet from the time, because it has this literal lobster tail armor for the back of your head. It has this really cool little iron piece that sticks out from under the visor right here that stops your face from being slashed easily by a saber or by another kind of a sword. And overall, I just think it's a cool looking helmet. You can also see a Turkish lobster tail pot helmet. It's not really a lobster tail helmet though. It's really just a pot helmet from the time because it doesn't have the lobster tail, but still a pretty cool one. Let me see. The English actually used these during. Well, actually, here's a winged hussar version of the lobster tail pot helmet with the accoutrements added, which looks really cool as well. But beyond that, The winged hussars, you can go on and on and on about them. But you could also go on and on and on about the Malmix, which were actually some of the forces that they ended up fighting during the Battle of Vienna, which are a very interesting part of the Ottoman armed forces that were involved in the battle as well. They have a really cool history and a cool culture of their own. But still, with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, and I thank you so much for really throwing in a cool little factoid that the F-35 is going to be named after the Winged Hussars, because there's so much history that went into them, and there's such a massive part of Polish history and Polish military culture, even up until the present day. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that the best I can, and thank you for sharing that cool little fun fact with us. And with that, we are on to, is it the second to last question or the final question of this segment, Matthew?
So this is going to be our final question of the segment, and this one goes to Charles Hazlitt, also another longtime channel legend, by the way, and he puts in a very generous $50 donation, and thank you very much, Charles, for that support as well. He says, thank y'all for what y'all do.
And thank you, Charles, for enjoying what we do. And thank you so much for throwing in some support. You have been around forever, Charles Hazlitt. I was actually shocked when you threw in the super chat earlier to see that you were in the live chat before you even threw in the super chat. I was like, wow, he's here again. Because I don't see your name a lot in the live chat. And then you threw in the super chat too. I was like, wow. I was like, that's so cool. And I'm so happy to have you here tonight. And thank you so much for enjoying everything that we do. I try and put in a lot of work. And also... see, you got it right. It's not the Malmuks, it's the Mamluks or something like that. But I'll have to try and get the name correct a little bit later. But beyond that, thank you so much once again for being here with us tonight and helping this channel to keep on running. Because folks like you help to make this thing possible. And if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to keep this thing rolling and keep up the good work, keeping up all of the crazy little history tidbits that I throw in and all of the news. We wouldn't be able to do any of that, Charles Hazlitt. And I got to thank you so much once again for greatly appreciating what we do and helping us to keep making it a reality each and every single day. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, it is now time for us to move back into the Ukraine war news and start talking about the frontline actions that we've seen on film today. Moving on into the northern area, near to the area of Novotarasivka and Mykolaiivka, we got to see that the 14th Brigade was hitting Russian forces with their artillery, and also drones as well. The first clip shows a drone hitting a Russian position. We can see that position right there. Got hit, blasted even. Oh, and a little subsequent explosion right there too. We love to see those. Additional damage is accrued through those explosions.
Oh. Ooh. Oh man, that explosion caused somebody to fall out the door, like they went oof, just around the ground.
Man, they got that Roblox oof sound going. They went oof. Oh look, there he is. He's firing at it actually with an AK. He's like, oh Bliad, don't hit the building, Bliad. And he's like, oh Bliad. Vadim. Oh Bliad.
Oh,
and
a crappy roof. It was actually somewhat strong.
Dude, it really was. And then they got him too. Oh my god. Well, they got a mine pit.
Well then.
Well.
The whole place just got leveled.
And now we can see the 14th Brigade putting up their outro here, which really is stylized. I gotta say, I like that one. And with that, we're now going to be moving on from that little bit of news on the front and a little bit further down and into the area of Svitove, where we got to see that a Mista S, maybe even the Lumberjack, was destroyed. We only got the one picture of it, but it's nice to see that another major-sized SPG of the Russian Federation was destroyed, and wonderful to know. Moving on from that and on into our next bit of news down in the Kremena Forest, we also got to see an incredibly long video. It was around 6 minutes and 32 seconds long of Ukrainian trench assaults in the area of the Kremena Forest. This video is quite long, but probably one of the most extensive looks at battles within the forest region, or the Severonsky Forest, and what it looks like at the moment at this point in the year. And so with that, here is the clip. Oh, get me out of this place! Wah, wah, or whatever the country music would be like. But anyways, when you see them reloading the AR.
Nice choice, by the way. Good AR.
Man, you know what? One day I ought to whip out my accordion, Matthew, and sit there and say, there ain't no heaven, but there ain't no hell. You know, start singing like the stupid country people. You know, like... I said
you can give it a try if you want.
I said stupid country people. No dissing on the country folks. Like not people who listen to country. I was talking about the musicians, because I don't know about y'all, But modern country, a lot like most modern music, is a little bit too corporatized, in my opinion. Like, it's not like a storytelling medium or anything creative anymore. You know, it's just like the same lyrics over and over, put to different beats. You know, kind of like rap is these days, too, because country will be like, cold beer, pickup truck, warm beer, tractor truck. You know, it's like, okay, all right, what's the next song? And then it's literally the same thing, and I'm like, can y'all come up with something new? Because I don't want to make it sound like it's a shopping list every time I listen to a song. You know, that's just
Hey,
me.
man, dishing on my music like that. What are you doing?
Man, you don't even listen to country.
Yeah, I do.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, actually. Like, why is it so unbelievable?
I always thought I'd like. I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. I've never actually heard Matthew play music ever in my life, so I always take guesswork at what he listens to. I always assume that you listen to like some kind of rock or something like that.
Oh yeah, a little bit of everything. Just not hardcore rap. That's the only thing I don't listen to. But yeah, I
Like music from the United States, music from North Korea. Funnily enough, North Korea actually has a busing music department. Like they may be starving, but their music is rich. I mean, like it's actually not bad. And then there's also Japanese military music and national music. It's all right. And then there's British, which I like a good bit. German is all right too. A little overdone in my opinion. Russian and Ukrainian military music is actually pretty good. You know, classic good beats. And we can see them now moving on from this trench that they've now cleared, and on into the next one.
trying to get a look at this gun right here. What type of AR is this?
Oh no, he's got that
It's also got a
magnifier.
magnifier on it, I think.
Jinx.
I was gonna say a Daniel, but you know everything's a Daniel.
1 second. It looks like
And we're lagging again. What's going on?
Oh, we are getting lag attacked right now so badly, Matthew. Aw, man. This is terrible. We're gonna have to wait it out. Let's wait it
Somebody
out.
poured the hot dog water on the stream.
Oh, you know, it had to happen today of all days, you know? Let's see. We're gonna be, oh, a Creative Cloud told me that we had updates. 1 second, everyone. I want to make sure that everyone's up to speed so that we're not leaving anyone behind right now as we run this thing. So let me make sure that our stream quality comes back. So sorry about this, everyone. Usually this doesn't happen a lot anymore. But I got to give a huge shout out, though, to our power supplier, because the only time that the power has literally gone out and we've had a true power outage was in the middle of Israel returning fire on Iran, and we ended up completely running out of power 2 hours into that stream, so we ended up having to make 2 separate parts. But it looks like we're back. So now we're going to be getting back to the video, which we're going to start right here. We see them firing once again into the trench like we saw just a minute ago. I said something about country music, and they said, we're going to put the boys on them. That's like the 90th time we've heard that, by the way, from some grouper. And like, you know, like we are a targeted group on this channel. But beyond that, you see them now moving forward. And thank you so much,
Man,
Steve Watkins.
that guy, that guy said, hey, don't make me put the Ukrainian boys on you. I'm like, what's he know about the Ukrainian boys? Like, come on, man. You talking about the Ukrainian soldiers?
Doesn't sound preacher-like to me. I'm just going to be honest about that.
No, sounds a little questionable.
It sounds like a threat to me, to be quite honest. But we can see them now moving on forward through the trench works and continuing to try and clear them out.
That lag is really doing a number on us, I think.
I know. Goodness. It's like a rare form tonight. Mr. Roboto. I have to tell you something. Oh no, the video is lagging. We're going to have to wait to see the video quality gets better. Alright, so I think it's getting a little bit better. But it's still not perfect. So, sorry everyone. Doomsday Games said picture's still like, I'm so sorry everyone. Like, this very rarely happens. I don't know what's going on tonight. I think someone's a little sad, so they're deciding to try and tank our show or something like that out there in the world, because they found out that they're all alone and they have no friends. But beyond that, we can see that they're firing continuously down the trenches and continuing to advance. And someone said, is the enforcer on the front lines? No, 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 we're not near the front lines. And the internet connection looks fine, but we're like literally getting flatlined now endlessly. I don't know what's up with this.
It's a little bit weird. I'm telling you, it's a little bit odd.
It is really weird. I mean, it's really weird, man. Oh, is there anything wrong with this? I mean, I'm not gonna lie though. This is the longest amount of lag time that I've seen in a very, very long time. Like it's almost endless right now.
You know, YouTube was having a problem though with uploads earlier today, so I'm wondering if maybe it's a YouTube problem or something like that. Because our internet's fine. Like I have full bars. I'm hearing you clearly, so I don't know what's going on.
Man, we have full bars and we're dropping bars, and yet YouTube can't pick up their end. Come on, YouTube, pick up the slack, damn it! But anyways, moving on from that and back into the video, which hopefully y'all can still see. We now see them wandering their way down the trench work. Someone said, it's the KGB. No! No, not the KGB.
Oh, look at him. Came in like a real operator. Oh, they've got those good mags. They've got those OK Industries ones. Do you see that?
I did. They look really good. Delicious, even. Like a fine
Juicy.
meal. We see him chucking a grenade.
Oh. Shooting right around the head.
That's the way you gotta do it, Matthew. You gotta keep everyone on their toes. Let them hear that supersonic crack passing right by their ear. Why not? Oh, and we're finally back to normal. We are back. Yay! Yay! I hope we're back. Oh, no, we're not. We're not. It just went right back to lag. I think, honestly, Matthew, this is a YouTube issue.
I think it may be because I saw YouTube creators, like their little team or whatever, saying earlier that they were having some server problems. So I think they might be having some stream problems now.
Oh, that's annoying. I'm sorry about that, everyone. We're going to have to largely blame the connectivity issues on YouTube tonight because our internet's fine. We're talking to each other fine. But it appears that our connection through OBS is horrendous. So with that, we're going to be moving on from this clip, and we're now going to be moving a little bit further down and into the Chasiv Yar area, where we got to see drone footage of what the city looked like today, and it has been heavily damaged already in the fighting that has just reached the town of Chasiv Yar. And we see the drone panning up and looking over the town, and the destruction is largely what we've seen almost everywhere else. It looks like the war has come to Chasiv Yar for sure. We see them
Let me go
now
check something here. Someone said down detector said YouTube was having issues. Let me check. Let's see here. YouTube. Oh yeah, buddy. We're seeing a spike. They're definitely having problems. Like no doubt about it. Huge problems apparently.
Dang. Well, we're hopefully the Lee Spring Army will.
There's video streaming and also uploading videos.
Dang. So we're kind of lucky that we're
Damn,
even
it's
on.
bad lag.
Man, terrible lag. I don't even think you can hear me right now.
I can hear you a little bit, but it's like a 30-second delay.
Oh, well, that must be why you're having the awkward pauses, man. Because I'll be sit there and say something, I'll be like, he's about to say something, right? And then it'll be like a 30-second pause, and then he'll say something, I'll be like, huh, that's interesting. So really quickly to cover this for all of y'all, right now YouTube is pretty much broken. So we shouldn't even be on air right now, but somehow we are. So I hope that y'all stick with us because I'm going to just keep on covering this like normal, and hopefully YouTube breaks before the Lee Spring Army does. Can I get an LC in the chat for that? And so with that, we're going to be moving on down into the area of Ivanivsky, where we got to see that the Russians are trying out some of those new assault tactics, using the smoke generator and following behind it with the barns, or the house. And oh, I don't even know what happened right there, but the screen went white. Oh, that was just the end of the clip. Okay, with that, we're now moving on from that clip and on into the next one, down to the area of Ventrivica, where we got to see the anti-aircraft gunners at work in the 93rd Brigade. Check out these guys, and the amazing work they're doing with that Gush gun mounted on the back of an MTLB. Pretty cool overall. Can't complain, can't deny it, pretty drippy, not gonna lie. Moving on from that down to the area of Kurtimivka, we also got to see the Ukrainian tanks firing on Russian forces. That funk music ensues. We see them backing that thing up. We now see them getting the gun ready to fire.
Also, I just added Team YouTube on Twitter about it, so we'll see if we get a response here shortly.
Our reps at Team YouTube should be in contact with us here soon. They do know that we are, after all, one of the most bussin' live streams on the internet. We do hold the number 4 spot in the world, at least for one day. So, maybe we'll get a response. But still, you see the Ukrainian tank hammering the Russian positions just down in the area of Kurtimivka. And we're making sure to remind them who's the boss, which is the Ukrainians. And we now see the drone flying around and showing off some of the damage, and then the clip ends. But still, nice to see. Moving on from that, and on a little bit further down the line and into the area of Shiroka Balka, we were also able to see that some Russian vehicles were destroyed in a compilation over the entirety of the Donetsk region. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and of course 16. But let's not forget 17. And who could not mention 18? And we all have to love 19. But most importantly, we can't forget 20. And then we have to give a huge shout out to 21 and 22.
21.
What's 9 plus 10? And we, of course, have to point out 23, 24, 25. The memorable 26, 27, and 28. An amazing group of folks.
That's a big catch. 29.
And 30. We can't forget the midlife
How many
crisis.
are they going to knock out, man?
That
That's
comes-
crazy.
Crazy, even. 32, 33, and 34, which are both APCs. 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, and 40. And 41 and 42. 42 armored vehicles destroyed over the Donetsk front in this area where this drone was. That is a large amount of vehicles. And once again, showing the Ukrainians are inflicting very high losses. Moving on from that and into the only clip we got from the area of the Avdiivka front today near Ocharatine, we got to see that a BMP-1 exploded. There's the BMP-1. And someone in the chat said, where is this stream coming from? From YouTube, of course. But we can see right here that the BMP is sitting there on the road. It's about to get hit by a drone or an ATGM here in a second. Most likely the drone. There's the drone. It's going to fly into the back of the BMP, and this thing's going to blow up like a bomb. And we can see it get hit right there.
Ooh.
Rattling that turret. You can see that turret hop up for just a quick second.
That turret broke quicker than the Abrams turret did that the Russians were trying to crush.
Man, they didn't even have to use a crane with a weight for this one. They just dropped an RPG on it.
Very clever. What's those blankets on the ground or something over there?
Oh, that's nothing. You didn't see anything. It was probably blankets. Honestly, man, you probably got the down on the nail. Probably blankets. But we can see the BMP right there smoking up. Ooh! And it's gone. It finally blew up. The fire got to the ammo, and there went our BMP. Or as that kid said on that meme where that dog flipped over and, like, broke that glass table. Oh no, our table! The Russians are like, oh, блядь, nasze BMP, блядь. They're like, oh no, this is terrible, блядь. Нет хорошо, блядь.
Mr. President, the second Russian vehicle's on fire.
Mr. President, there's been a second drone attack. What? Blitz? What do you mean, the second one? And we see it continuing to burn. Oh, that's a nice fire. It's beautiful looking. It burns quite cleanly, too.
It's raging almost as bad as that Moscow fire.
Yeah. 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 I don't know why I'm freaking out about that, but yeah. And we can see the, you see a little fire spreading in front of the BMP. It's like a fire line up there. A firing line, even. Look, it's gotten even longer. Now that's a smoke screen. That's the end of the clip, but nice to see. And nice to see they paid homage to the LSA Eagle. I'm just kidding, that one's completely different than ours. But moving on from that, and out of the area, and down towards Novomikhailivka, we also got to see another Russian tank destroyed by drone. We're going to mute that. But we can see the Russian vehicle here that's about to get hit by the drone. And we now see it getting hit by the drone. And we're about to see it get hit again. It's truly a Christmas miracle. And thank you, everyone, for throwing the kind words in the live chat. I see all of y'all always throwing in kind words, and I don't really get to say a lot about it because we're always rushing to cover all the news we can, but I always see it. And on top of that, we got to see today that a lot of y'all really had amazing, incredible, and nice things to say really across the internet, and we were very touched to see that. We got to thank all of y'all for being part of the Elite Spring Army and always being so nice and so kind, not only to us, but to everyone else in the Elite Spring Army. And so with that, we're moving on.
I think we were about to get roasted. That was the objective, but it turned into such a positive. I've never seen so many positive LSA comments in my life. Like, it's crazy. Everyone's repping the LSA very proudly out there. I'm very glad to see it.
And I love to see it too. And I love to know that not only that, but y'all are also literally keeping the flags of the Elite Spring Army flying high around the entirety of the world. That's not just a figure of speech anymore. That is a true statement now because we actually have the flags out there. So with that, we are now moving on into the area of Uruzhane, where we also get to see a Russian T-80BV getting hit down here. Oh, that's new. Oh, and look, it's like one of those little firework tanks, man. You light it on fire and it starts moving.
Look at that. It's a roller, bliat.
Man.
Oh.
Drunk driving be like. That's what the drunk driver looks like. But it looks like that thing's jammed now. And that's the end of that clip, but another T-80BV knocked out, obliterated even. Moving on from that and on to our next clip near to the area of Robotny, we also got to see a Russian MTLB run over a mine after it dropped off the troops in the middle of a field. And good night to you, Magic Force. I saw that you couldn't stay on that much tonight, but you stayed on through the entire news segment nearly, so huge kudos to you. Oh, and there goes the MTLB. Ran right over a mine, and it's gone. It will not be coming back. This one-sided reporting doesn't help.
One-sided. We're showing the Russians get destroyed out here on the battlefield. I mean, we're showing the Ukrainians winning. That's two sides right there, buddy.
Yeah,
I'm not good at math, but that's two.
There's two sides to this, my side and Matthew's side, and lo and behold, they're both pro-Ukraine. So, hey, win-win. It is two-sided. but anyways, moving on from that and on to our next clip of news, outside of Robotny, we also got to see that the Russians flew one of their FPV drones today over the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. The footage was really grainy, but you could make it out. Just really quickly, the Ukrainians show you, look, we found the footage, which is what this watermark is. And there's the 6 reactors.
We have radiation, blast. Oh my god, it's a 50 Ronkin.
There's graphite on the roof. You didn't see the graphite. He's sick. Take him to the infirmary. But anyways, you can see the reactors down there. And a little concerning that they're flying an FPV drone over the reactors, but, you know, it's Russia.
I won't go over the reactor core. I won't do it. Yes, you will. You do what you're told.
Oh, man. Hey, aren't you saving
And
that?
like Hot Dog Man, he'll do what he's told.
Oh, there we go. I was about to say it. I was like, aren't you saving that for a special you-know-who? But anyways, moving on from that and down into the area at Chilburda. We also get to see a VTR-82 that was destroyed by in the area. Check it out.
Пипец, короче, дела вот такие у нас, пацаны. Все очень печально. Очень-очень. Вот такие прилетики небольшие, бля. Вон пушка валяется от БТР.
There's the turret over there. That's nice.
Еще запчасти.
And look, there's some other armor pieces over there. Someone said, wait, hang on, Maddie. I gotta read this one the way it came in. Is this a pro-Russia or Ukraine channel? Ukraine. It's just like it's a pro-Ukraine channel. Like I don't know if you
Who
could
said
tell.
that?
Oh,
there they are.
Man,
2012 on Nani Mouse.
Man, they threw that in with the worst spelling I've ever seen. It truly, like, if you read it, it's like, is this pro-Russia or pro-Ukraine? It's like, it's pro-Ukraine. Like, it's like, that's what we are. That's what we've been forever. Because we're pro-Western, so.
Is this Enforcer Matt or is this Ben Hammer?
That's emotional damage. But anyways, getting back to the clip.
Оторвало нахер. Вот все, что осталось. Парни погибли. Вот такие вот дела. Сука, это все Баба Яга.
Baba Yaga.
Сучка драная.
Well, don't call it that.
Вот так вот. Вон, куски одежды чьи-то. Вот так вот. Все очень печально. Все разбросано на несколько метров, километров. Охренеть. Вот движок.
Look, an engine. Those are usually inside of APCs.
Весело, весело. Что говорить-то, бля.
He's very much out of breath looking at this. Oh, блядь, I feel like I built the thing myself, блядь. It is lying around all the parts, you know. Look at this. That's how it is.
Вот еще такие моменты.
Look at this deflated and sad RPG. It's like got squished in like a Looney Tunes cartoon.
Плющенные, бля.
Called a carrot.
Последствия.
Oh, cut.
Why?
There's a bit of a thing here at the end. Whoa.
Allow me to inspect on a second screen. Oh.
Director. Cut.
I'm terribly sorry, everyone, but this broadcast was interrupted because there was a high amount of disturbing-looking backpacks and luggage that were found on the ground, which unfortunately we cannot show to all of y'all for YouTube reasons. They usually don't like us to show off luggage because that would technically make us a travel channel, and we are only a travel and events channel. We are not a travel channel specifically. But moving on from that news, it's time for us to move out of the left bank of the Dnipro and on up to Kyiv to cover the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky here on this wonderful and beautiful day of day 799 of the war. So, without further ado, here's the peach.
Bitch.
If we can get the whole thing up on screen, Blit. Let's see here. Come on. Okay, everything looks normal. All right, without further ado, here's the speech. Come on. There we go. Speech.
Бажаю здоров'я, шановні українці, українки. Підсумки цього дня. Ставка. Кілька основних питань. Звичайно, ситуація на фронті. Була доповідь головкома. Покровський напрямок, максимум уваги. Інші напрямки на Донеччині, південні напрямки, Харківщина. Також сьогодні головком доповів загалом щодо захисту кордону з Росією та відповідних наших громад в кількох областях. Ми бачимо ризики, ми будемо знищувати окупанта за будь-яких умов. Окремо і дуже детально сьогодні говорили на ставці щодо будівництва фортифікацій. Були доповіді і уряду, прем'єр-міністра Дениса Шмигаля, і Офісу в межах відповідальності регіонального напрямку Олексія Кулеби, і від голови Державної служби спеціального транспорту Олександра Яковця. Я дякую кожному і кожній, хто на місцях будує фортифікації, працює так ефективно, як потрібно. Дотримуємось графіків, пройшлися сьогодні і питаннями захисту нашої енергетики, конкретних об'єктів від конкретних загроз. Зараз треба поєднати два процеси: захист енергетики від ударів у цей час та забезпечення наших людей електрикою. А також вже час починати підготовку до наступного опалювального сезону. Завдання очевидне. Маємо зробити максимум для захисту життя. І кожен аспект цієї роботи від ППО та РЕБ на об'єктах до необхідних будівництв і постачання – все це персональна відповідальність кожного, хто залучений до роботи. Від уряду та повітряних сил до енергокомпаній та місцевих служб. Дякую всім, хто ставиться до своєї роботи дійсно сумлінно. Також за підсумками розмови на ставці я доручив прем'єр-міністру, міністру оборони, міністру закордонних справ, головкому, кожному на їх рівні працювати з партнерами, щоб прискорити постачання зброї, реалізацію пакетів та домовленостей. Оперативність важлива, зміст пакетів є. Я на сьогодні не бачу проблеми з цим. Я дякую Конгресу Сполучених Штатів за рішення, але швидкість постачання та реалізація рішень – це те, із чим також не має бути жодних проблем. Очікуємо зброю в Україні для наших воїнів. Продовжуємо сьогодні і підготовчу активність, наради щодо тих результатів, яких очікуємо від найближчих місяців та загалом року, НАТО, перспективи на рік та конкретно наші цілком справедливі очікування від саміту у Вашингтоні, Євросоюз, підготовка до фактичного відкриття переговорів про вступ, якого очікуємо у червні, та подальша робота з ЄС. І, звичайно, саміт миру. Глобальний саміт, є вже конкретний розподіл по урядовцям та іншим представникам нашої держави, які працюватимуть на тих географічних напрямках, звідки ще треба залучити лідерів. Зараз цими днями ми разом зі Швейцарією завершили направлення запрошень на саміт. Конкретні дати саміту – 15 та 16 червня. Це буде перший етап, фактично перший реальний шанс розпочати відновлення справедливого миру. Ми всі маємо розуміти, що лише глобальна сила здатна примусити Росію до миру. І саме тому працюємо, щоб залучити якнайбільше учасників до саміту у Швейцарії та відповідної комунікації. Маємо також розуміти і те, що Путін спробує і різними маніпуляціями, і силою ударів своїх терористів спробує зірвати цю роботу. Наші зусилля спробує послабити українські позиції. Всі наші позиції і на полі бою, і в дипломатії, і в інформаційній сфері мають бути зараз однаково сильними, щоб нам тиснути і наближати наші результати. Окупанти мають втратити змогу тиснути і здобувати щось для себе. Тож наша сила, наші можливості, наша зброя, єдність із партнерами – все це має працювати разом і буде працювати. Дякую кожному і кожній, хто з Україною. Дякую всім, хто воює та працює заради нашої держави і людей. Дякую всім, хто відновлює нормальне життя після російських ударів і хто наближає реальну відповідальність Росії за цю війну. Війну, в якій ми обов'язково захистимо свою незалежність. Слава Україні!
And Rom Slava.
Бажаю
And with that, I don't know why it started again, but with that, that is the end of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky. And Matthew and me are starving to death. Like, I'm not lying. We both ran away from the computers as soon as the speech started to try and get something to eat. We were foraging for food. I mean, we were really giving North Korea.
I was about to say, I don't know if anybody can tell it, but my mind is not quite here tonight. It's because I'm deprived of food right now, and I'm very, very starving. And I just inhaled a honey bun in 5 seconds. I've never done that before. I just literally inhaled the thing. Very tasty, though.
I will tell you all this. What the scene was like when we were trying to scrounge for food, I think we could have given the North Koreans a run for their money. Because we were actually like climbing over each other. We even got in fights for food upstairs. Hell, I even think we ended up eating someone up there at some point in between the speech. But beyond that, we have been fed. And so we will be getting back to the normal broadcast as is usually put out. But in case y'all were wondering, because I know many people are going to want the Enforcer snack update from both of us, I got a pack of Pringles sour cream and onion. I also got a pack of Pringles original, like not like the whole like stack thing, you know, like the massive cylinder, but they're like the little individual packs. I got one of sour cream, one of original, and I got a honey bun. So that was my lot. But Matthew, what did you get? What is the snack update from your end?
Let's see. I got a large water. I got a strawberry banana thing in a juice box. I got a Pringles original, and I got in the refrigerator. I got the last one, and also I got the honey bun too.
Dang, Matthews, you sound like you had some gourmet, man. Like, I only had, Pringles of 2 flavors and a honey bun, and then you're like, I had a strawberry puree. I'm like, where the hell did you get that? Like, where the hell did that come from? But it sounds like Matthew got the last one of them, so I think he ended up beating me out on the snack quality. But I'm not gonna lie, folks. We were having an argument here on the channel several days ago about what flavor is better, sour cream and onion or original of the Pringles. And I'm not going to lie, there is a lot of positives to be had with the originals Pringles. Like, I'm a sour cream and onion believer, but there is nothing bad to be had with an original Pringle. Like, nothing wrong with them at all. So I'll have to say I'm going to have to change my mind. I'm actually going to have to be down the middle now, sour cream and onion and original, not really one or the other, because they're actually not that bad. But anyways, enough of the idle chit-chat. We have to get into the best idle chit-chat there is, which is getting to talk with all of y'all. It is the funnest kind of chit-chat we get to do all night. We can literally talk about anything we want. Y'all can talk about anything y'all want. Y'all can bring up anything y'all want. And it makes this time of the night so fun for us every single time it comes around. And I, of course, have to thank each and every single one of y'all so much once again for being here with us at this time of night. There's still 6.5 thousand of y'all here, and we were always entirely honored to be able to cover the news for each and every one of y'all each and every night. But now it's time for us to get to talk to as many of y'all as we can possibly talk to before we reach 12:30 or we run out of questions, whichever one comes first. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so moving into our final question segment of the night, we are fresh out of polls. We ran them very early tonight, all 4 of them, so we ran out a little bit faster than usual. But moving into our first super chat, this is going to go to Rick Clay, who puts in a $50 donation. And thank you very much, Rick, for that support. He says 44% of the Russian oil refining capacity has been hit by the Ukrainian drone attacks, and this equates to 900,000 BPD loss, valued between 90 to 135 million per day revenue loss.
And I thank you so much for sharing the stats, Rick Clay, because those seem to be fairly accurate from what we understand, and it is going to be a massive hit to the Russian economy, and not only that, their ability to produce fuels or have usable fuels well into the future, considering that that is how many barrels per day is being affected at the moment, and that's what BPD stands for. It's barrels per day, and so Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Rick Clay, and also thank you for the massive support and helping this channel to keep on running. Because when we look at that picture again, much like we were saying earlier in stream, there is no way that the Russian economy can survive this kind of damage. It's going to be damning to their success or even their sustainment in the future, and we may even see the effects of this come to a head near to the end of this year or the very early part of next year. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, and thank you so much once again for sharing that bombshell statistics with us, because it's really crazy when you hear something like that. And thank you so much once again for supporting this channel and helping us to keep this thing running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to be here right now to even get to talk about something that in depth. And so thank you once again, and we are on to the next one.
The next one goes to Steve Watkins at work. He is still at work, working hard. He puts in a $50 donation, and thank you very much, Steve, for that support. He said, "Hi, guys," and hello, Steve.
Hello.
He says, "Here's a little extra for the good work, and take a chat, please."
Hey, we got a bonus from Steve Watkins. And he's like, here's a little extra. It's the live stream bonus. And I gotta say, thank you so much, Steve Watkins at work, for throwing in the live stream bonus, for enjoying our work tonight. And I'm not going to lie, tonight is like the night of the $50 super chat. Like, I believe there are like 15 of them right now or something like that. Like, most of them are $50 super chats, I believe.
Something like that. I think so.
Yeah, it's been crazy. Like, every single super chat is a 50. I'm like, wow, that's crazy. But we thank each and every one of y'all, whether it be a 50, whether it be a 5, whether it be a 1, whether it be a 500. We thank each and every one of y'all for y'all's support. And thank you so much, Steve Watkins at work, for the support and enjoying the stream enough to want to help it to keep running. Because folks like you make it possible. You make it a reality for us to be able to be here and running the stream and doing this work, for y'all to even like it in the first place, to continue to support it. And I got to thank you so much for being one of those folks, Steve Watkins, who has been with us for a very long time, helping us to keep this channel running. And thank you so much once again for making this channel possible again tonight and greatly enjoying it. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And of course, long live the Lee Spring Army. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and we're going to grab that live chat question for Steve Watkins, but real quick, I just saw that we just got rid of a Russian bot out of the chat, a crazy one. It was trying to tell us that the Russians were trying to pull off a leisure war. It's just a war of leisure, because that's the way wars go. It's not a really productive war or necessarily a very hotly contested war. It's just a leisurely war. Putin just decided to waltz in there and lose real quick. But anyways, we're moving on to that live chat question, which goes to Leopard of the Bismarck, who says, "For the future live chat questions, but what do y'all think on the situation in Georgia?" And Atlanta's doing pretty good, I think.
The situation in Georgia is pretty good. Atlanta is what it is. But in the other places of Georgia, things are going really well. Like right outside of downtown Atlanta, like anything outside of downtown Atlanta, it's doing pretty good. Other places,
Now, that mall, that's not doing too good.
Yeah, not doing that great. The airport, doing pretty good. Still one of the busiest airports in the world, and one of the largest ones too. But like beyond that, not going that bad. And I know what you're talking about. You're actually talking about Georgia, the country south of Russia. I haven't really been following that too much. I know that there's a lot of rallies and protests that are going on in Georgia about the foreign agents law that they're trying to pass. And sadly, I don't know enough about the law to be able to speak on it with any kind of actual knowledge. So I'll have to say that tensions are rising in Georgia, but nevertheless, I wouldn't be able to tell you exactly what's going on and what the law is about, because I generally steer clear of anything that looks like it may be domestically political in any country in the world, and that includes Georgia. So when I see that news, I'm like, yep, I'm just going to go right over here and completely ignore it. So sadly, I couldn't really tell you much about it, but tensions certainly are a little bit high in Georgia at the moment domestically. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, and I thank you so much once again for sponsoring that live chat and helping this channel to keep on running, Steve Watkins at work. But sadly, I just don't really have a good answer to that question, because I don't really look into domestic political issues in Georgia all that much. Also, Aleppo Gambit said, "Can we name Pringles the official snack food of the Enforcer?" That would be a little apt at the moment, but honestly, the official snack food changes depending on what we have in the house. So if we have Pringles, it's going to be Pringles, and if it's something else, I'll have something else. Usually, though, the actual snack food is just straight up normal saltine crackers, because we always have those, and they're fairly neutral. So you don't hate them, you don't really like them, they're just there, and so I end up just eating them. So that usually is like the snack food. But now we've gotten a minor upgrade, which is Pringles. So I'm eating the Pringles until they run out, and then it'll be back to saltines. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, like about the official snack food. But with that, we are on to the next one.
And also, by the way, we did get a response from Team YouTube on Twitter. They said that they looked into the report and they're going to provide follow-up info as well. So apparently they looked into it and apparently fixed it because it seems like we're lag-free now. So big thanks to YouTube. How about that, Enforcer?
A huge shout out to our folks up in YouTube, the members of the Leaf Spring Army that actually keep the infrastructure running. We massively respect y'all and thank y'all greatly. And I hope that the flag of the Leaf Spring Army is flying over YouTube HQ right now. And so with that, thank you so much once again, Team YouTube, for fixing that problem. And we love to know that we have a direct line straight from y'all to us. It feels like we get to cross the threshold of the internet and talk to all of y'all. And so thank you so much once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Blue Flam 777 LSA, who puts in a $50 donation. And thank you, Blue Flam, for the support. And I'm telling you what, the first two sentences is scaring the hell out of me. So I'm going to let Enforcer take a look at it and see if he wants to have a go.
Oh my.
Oh.
Oh my. It's just like, I
Oh.
don't... Wait, hang on. Let me... Oh! Something like that. Wait.
Oh.
Wait, no, better yet. Ew, yuck. Or something
It was unintentional. Oh my god, yuck.
Yuck. Ew, yuck. But beyond that, Blue Flame 777 LSA. You've put me in a rock and a hard place. Either I read this, or we censor it. And I thank you so much for the endless support that you're always giving to this channel, Blue Flame, and helping us keep it running. But at the same time, that is pretty out there. I'm not gonna lie. That is pretty wild. So I think that we'll sadly have to censor that part. So Matthew, you can read everything else but that part, because I think that joke's a little too spicy. But Matthew, what do we got?
It's spicy, like Szechuan sauce. But Blue Flam said, "You guys rock like granite." Thank you. You're bolder than most. Oh, thank you as well. Bold. Oh, I like that. They said, "Love Ukraine." And question to the chat.
And I like the puns. That's very good. And I would like to say that I believe we are bolder than most, because the channel was made by just the community alone. There wasn't really any collaborative things that we did with other folks to help to grow the channel. So I like to think that we are bold, because a lot of people end up going into like the whole like trying to build a community thing, and we tried that at the beginning. I'm happy that we learned that that wasn't a good idea, and we just did our own thing and went our own path, because it just doesn't end well. But beyond that, I do have to say thank you so much for the incredibly kind words and helping this channel to keep on running, because Blue Flame, while we never can read your jokes, I will say they go hard. Like they go pretty hard. Like if this was a real comedy segment, like if we were doing stand-up comedy, that might actually be a good one just to throw out of the blue. I will say that. But it's not a stand-up comedy segment. It's a live stream about a war. And also we try and keep it a little PG, because I do want to remind everyone, we do have some members of the audience here, and a massive shout out to them, because they are certainly going to be the next up-and-coming great minds of the world, but we do have some viewers here that are in between the ages of 13 and 17. Although they make up an incredibly small part of our viewership, it's something like 0.3%, I still want to make sure that we keep things PG enough that they could stay around and not get in any trouble with their parents about being here and watching this, because that joke might expose those age of kids to things they may have not heard about before. And honestly, even if they did know about it, I wouldn't feel comfortable reading that joke aloud, knowing that there are some 13 to 17-year-olds in here. No offense to them, because I know, like, when I was 13 through 17, I was like, I'm already an adult, so hit me with it. But trust me, if you are 13 or 17 here in this channel and you're watching it right now, you don't really know. Like, it's weird for adults to go down that route, like with kids. Honestly, like, looking back, I would greatly question anyone who would do that. You know, I'm not gonna lie. But anyways, going off of that, I do thank you so much for the support, Blue Flame, and thank you so much for throwing in the puns. We love the puns, and not only that, when we do get to read the jokes are gold. And so with that, thank you so much once again, and we will make sure to send it to the live chat, and thank you for being an old guard, a true old guard of the Sleeve Spring Army. And so with that, we are on to the question. What do we got, Matthew?
So the question is going to go to JBW077, who says, does France still have the French Foreign Legion active, and why not send them or other mercs? Mercs suck.
Hot dog water? But anyways, moving on from that, I have to say something about this really quickly. Apparently, a lot of people aren't a fan of hot dog water anymore. It apparently doesn't taste that good. Got the news on that today. But moving on from that, I want to get into the thing, and this is a great question, and it's still a commonly misunderstood thing about the Foreign Legion. The Foreign Legion is not a mercenary group of the French Republic. It is actually a part of the French Armed Forces, and this requires me to pull up the French Armed Forces and go to the actual structure that they have for the army and show it to y'all. So, let's see here. Let's see, the French Army, here we go. The Armée de Terre, which is the Army of the Ground. It's kind of weird, you know, because I think their air force is called like the Army of the Air. It's like Army de something air, I believe. But let me see if I can get their little map of their army laid out. Come on, you got to be kidding me! Did they get rid of it? It was a perfect visual description. Let me go find it. French Army structure. There we go. I pulled it up in the past. Structure of the French Army. So this is the Armée de Terre, which means that this is not including the Air Force and the Navy. This is just the structure of the French ground forces, and this is what it looks like when you lay it out on a sheet of paper. At least on the larger overview level. So you have your commander of the army up here, the marshal pretty much of the French army, and then you have the smaller groups. But beyond that, moving on from that, I need to scroll through here and I need to find the Legion Étrange, which is the Foreign Legion. And you can actually see right here, the ones right here that are in red. This is a Foreign Legion unit right here. This is the 4th Regiment of the Foreign Legion. This is the 1st Regiment of the Foreign Legion. And then we actually have an entire part of the French Foreign Legion that is dedicated to recruitment right here. This is I sadly wouldn't be able to tell you the unit size because I sadly can't read that. But let's see here. Let me see. Where is the Legion Étrange? There is a part of the French Foreign Legion. I believe they're over here in the combat segment. Let's see. Yep, they are. So here is a part of the Foreign Legion. This is the 6th Brigade, and I believe this is the one that has most of that's a stretch. Most of the Foreign Legion in it, but you can see right here, here's a Foreign Legion unit, here's a Foreign Legion unit. This is actually a cavalry unit, so this would be like an armored unit of the Foreign Legion, meaning that it's made up of Leclercs and tanks like that. But you can also see that they have I believe a logistics unit as well, and sadly I can't read the other unit emblem down there. I'm not sure, that's not a comms unit or anything, it's some other kind of a unit. But beyond that, the French Foreign Legion is not a mercenary group. It is an actual part of the French army. So if you send it over there, you may as well be sending the 2nd Brigade over there, because it's the same thing. It's just a different form of unit, kind of using a different doctrine. Also, something interesting. Let me see if I can find this really quickly. There is a brigade that is still in service. This one right here, actually, the 7th Brigade. The 7th Brigade's emblem is a really cool one, and let me see if I can show it to y'all. 2nd Brigade French. Let me go here. I found out a lot about this unit today because they were actually formed at the end of World War II off of a brand new kind of a concept. But this is their emblem for their unit. It's actually a centaur with a spear.
Oh, that's kind of interesting. I'll be honest with you, I don't like that part of it, but everything else about it's pretty cool.
You went through like 5 stages of grief right there, man. You went, oh, that's pretty cool. I honestly don't like it. I was like, dang, dude. Like, man.
I was about to say, I was about to just be like, yeah, I like that. But I was like, I don't know. I mean, it kind of messed up like the flow of it. I kind of like the emblem without that thing on it.
Well, you know what's cool about it is that the reason why the emblem has the centaur with a spear on it is because the 7th Brigade was actually founded as a very special type of brigade in the French army, which was nothing but light recon, and the whole theory is that they would cover a wide area of the battlefield and they would integrate nuclear warfare into their doctrine, meaning that if you went up against these guys, they were all pretty much light infantry with light tanks, but they would nuke you at the same time. And it was a very interesting kind of a doctrinal strategy. It ended up being thrown out of the window. But also, Matthew, this unit, and this is why this is all going to tie together, and you're going to love them in a minute, because there's no option. If you do not love them, you will be sentenced to a firing squad. But nevertheless, they used Unimogs.
Oh, well, you know I like these. I'm the one who turned you on to these Unimogs.
Yeah.
I've been a Unimog fanatic for many, many years, probably a decade. Ever since I saw Top Gear have one out, I was a fan of it.
Yeah, they had Unimogs, and they had lots of them, and it's so cool. Matthew, do you know the origin of the Unimog?
It was the German military. It was used in one of their military vehicles, I believe.
No.
Yeah, well, what was it?
It started off as a replacement to the tractor.
Are you sure about that?
I'm not kidding. I actually watched a documentary today about the history of the Unimog, and it started off as a design by a German to replace tractors, because this thing had 4-wheel drive, and not only that, because of the larger wheels and also the width of the wheels, which was literally the exact width of 2 ruts in a field, it could be used like a tractor. And they would hook up plows to this thing. It was used for all kinds of agricultural purposes. And then it was such a good vehicle that the German army noticed how good the vehicle was in on-road and off-road conditions, and then they started to buy them. Well, actually, right before the Germans started to buy them, Mercedes Daimler bought the Unimog concept from the guy who was originally making it, and then they started making it, and they improved it a little bit, and then when it got improved, because the first Unimogs were actually hand-built, then they started to produce them in a factory. They were factory assembled, and then that's when the German here, I believe, started to buy Unimogs. Then they were so good that the French started buying them as well, and so then pretty much every land army on mainland Europe and Western Europe at the time was using Unimogs as transports.
Well, that's very interesting. I knew it was a very, very capable military vehicle, like you see it being used here, because the thing can literally crawl over anything. This is one of the most capable vehicles I think that's ever been made in history. It's just wild. It's got a very good engine. It's got a good transmission. You can pretty much outfit it to be anything, like the fire truck and all these other things right here. And also, just a fun fact as well, I believe the new G-Class, that Mercedes, all the rich people like to go out and go buy that huge boxy-looking Mercedes G-Wagon.
Uh-huh.
That's a chassis based on that vehicle. So they put the Unimog chassis or some derivative of it in that G-Class.
That's really cool. I actually didn't know that. But also, Matthew, to prove what I was saying to you really quickly, look at this. The Unimog is a line of multi-purpose tractors, trucks, and lorries that have been produced by Boehringer from 1948 until 1951, and by Daimler Truck, formerly Daimler-Benz, Daimler Chrysler, and Daimler AG since 1951. But it actually started as a replacement of the tractor, which is really a crazy thing, because it did so well, it immediately blew up after just a few years from being a tractor, because this is what they originally looked like right here, and you can really see the agricultural implementation, or the agricultural mindset that was being put into its design at that point.
Yeah, I think this might be why I'm not aware of this, because I actually didn't know that Unimog was owned by a different company before Daimler got a hold of it, and then Mercedes. Because I believe Daimler owns Mercedes. But when Mercedes took it over, they immediately started trying to turn it into a military vehicle, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
I think so. I think they also tried to make it into a general utility vehicle, because German public services actually use an endless amount of Unimogs. They have Unimogs for tree trimming, mowing, all kinds of stuff. I mean, it's insane. And these things have a lot of agricultural purposes even today. Here's one from 1957, but you can see it being used in an agricultural role again, which is really, it's just wild to think it started off as a tractor. But let's see, here's the 404, which is one of the first military versions of the Unimog. that was actually made as a troop transport instead of a agricultural vehicle. I mean, you can see that when Daimler Mercedes got a hold of it, they immediately extended the wheelbase. You can see that this one is far longer than the 401 that we just saw in the agricultural role. And then from that point on, they started to eventually size it up to be bigger and larger up until you get to the present day when they're actually pretty big vehicles. But this was one of the first ones. And you can see how small it is. It's really just a tractor, really.
It really is. I'll be honest with you, the early models like this one, not a huge fan of that. But I guess if it led to the other version, that's good. But the newer ones, when Daimler got a hold of it, those are pretty cool.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie, they look kind of cute. You know, the early ones. I think this one looks really nice. But let's see. Here's a four. Oh, that does look stupid. I'm not gonna lie. But this one looks pretty cool.
Oh yeah, man, they're really good with the paint on these. I don't know what it is. The paint's super reflective on these Unimogs.
Yeah, I mean, it's just such a cool vehicle, isn't it? Like I gotta say, great job introducing me to this because I really like these things because they're just so cool looking. They're really neat. And then here's a Swiss Army Unimog. You know, like one of the most earliest ones that there was, you know, like almost one of the ones from like the late 40s. And what was wild, Matthew, is that this thing was actually being designed by the original guy who came up with the Unimog concept. He was in like the design phase of this thing at the end of World War II. So American forces and British forces were advancing over this guy, and he was just in his office working on this design. And in 1946, literally just months after the war ended, the first Unimog prototype actually rolled out of a workshop and came into being in the world. So this thing is pretty much a product of World War II.
That's pretty cool, man. I just like this all the way around. Like, it's just so cool. I like it, man. I like it.
Wait a minute.
Well, wait a minute. Let's
Wait,
look
the
at that new
Dingo?
one though. Is that the Dingo? No, no. Wait a minute. No. The Dingo is not based on the Unimog chassis. There's no way. Oh, no, that's pretty cool.
Man, that is really cool right there, man. I was like, dang, look at that. That dude, it would be really cool to have a Unimog. I'm not gonna lie. We'll never be able to afford one though because they're like 120 grand. But it would be super cool to have a Unimog one day. I would love to have one. But
I think it's cost 120 grand because you got to get them imported to the United States. I think over there in Europe you can get them for a decent price.
man, don't you just envy Europeans? Like every once in a while, it's like, damn it, we can't get one of these. But they're so cool looking. Even this one's really cool looking.
Very interesting. And also, by the way, I saw Aldo Schmidak say UPS trucks are Mercedes, by the way. I thought they were the Ford chassis, that Ford strip chassis that they sell with the box truck over the chassis. I thought that's what they were because they sure don't sound like Mercedes. That engine does not sound like any engine Mercedes has ever made. It sounds more like a Ford, like a big V8. But I'm not sure.
Let me go pull it up. UPS truck. Let's see here. Well, they're not going to tell us the model. I mean, I just wanted to know the model. They're like trying to get me to get a job. I'm like, I think I'm good. But let's see. Yeah, I can't find the actual model of this thing. But that's cool to know that apparently they are Mercedes. I didn't know that. That's really neat. But still, thank you for sharing that little fact with us. And I think we rabbit holed on this far too long. But to get back to the original question in the super chat about sending the French Foreign Legion. Sending the French Foreign Legion is the same thing as sending the French Army, so you would really just end up sending the French Army anyways, because it would still officially be showing that the French Army is there and the French government is now involved in the war directly. So with that, I hope that does address that question incredibly well, and thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. I think we went down like an Olympic feat rabbit hole, and so I'm sorry about that, but I hope I was able to eventually get around to answering the question. And so with that, thank you so much once again, and with that, we are on to the next one. But before we do, Matthew, I'm just saying this. If the Lee Spring Army ever grew large enough to actually be some kind of a larger organization that actually had people volunteering or working for it, I think that the Unimog should be put into the running as the transport vehicle that the Lee Spring Army would use in Europe.
It may be so. I'll be honest with you though. I was gonna not rabbit hole in this too much, but if I had the option of $120,000 Unimog, or like for example the outrageously priced new Raptor with a V8 in it, that $120,000 Raptor that State Line Fishing just mentioned, which is insanely expensive for a truck, by the way. Never pay $120,000 for a pickup truck. That's just not smart. But if I could pick between the two, I would pick the Raptor if the cost wasn't an issue, but since they're equal in price, because it's just so much cooler, man.
But you know what I'm saying though. Like if we were running like the Lee Spring Army as an actual organization that did things, and of course when I say this, I want to make this very clear: the Lee Spring Army is never going to become an armed group in the future. That would be ridiculous. That's the point of a national military to do for the United States, Poland, and whatnot. If we did anything in the future and we actually made an organization out of the Lee Spring Army, it would be entirely humanitarian, supporting, natural disaster areas. If a war did start, I mean, maybe we would try and find an agreement with maybe NATO to integrate the Lee Spring Army as a logistical auxiliary, something along those lines. It would of course always be a non-armed group, because to get into the aspect, because some people think this is cool, I don't think this is cool at all, to get into the group of trying to make this thing into an armed organization, not only one causes a lot of issues, two, I don't ever think that that's a role of a community like this. I have seen a few people bring that up in the past, like, wouldn't that be cool if the Lee Spring Army became a real army? And I'm like, not really. I'm like, it wouldn't really be that cool. But it would be really cool if we did become a humanitarian organization where we could do our own thing and have balls, like some organizations don't have these days. And so with that, I hope that does address that well, because if that was the case, and of course there would be a decent amount of the Lee Spring Army in Europe, I think that if we could, of course, if you could get Unimogs at a good price, Unimogs would be the vehicle of choice for the Lee Spring Army in Europe. In America, there would probably have to be a different vehicle chosen that would be cheaper, because importing them at around 120,000 a piece, if we ever had the ability to even do something like that in the future, that would be way too expensive and would not be economical. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, just out of a crazy rabbit hole for no reason. But with that, we are on to the next one.
Also, real quick, Enforcer, I'm putting up a poll real quick, a good poll. Let me real quickly type something out. So could you pull up a picture of the 2024 Ford Raptor? And could you pull up a picture of that new Mercedes Unimog, by the way?
Sure. This is going to be a very interesting rabbit hole. 2024 Unimog. The Unimog U4000. That looks like that brand new bussin'. Only technical required cookies. But let's see here. Oh yeah, that's that bussin' kind of a Unimog, my boy. Let me go get that 2024 Ford Raptor. Does this one come with Death Wobble included?
No, it doesn't have that.
Okay. Okay, good.
There we go. Look at that.
And then Unimog.
So the poll says, would you rather have the Ford Raptor R, which you saw in the photo back there, this one? Would you rather have this? Or would you rather have the Mercedes Unimog over here, this thing right here? If you had to pick between the two, and someone was just to give you it, which one would you have?
I'm very interested. Oh my lord, that was actually kind of wild. I don't know if you saw that, but one of them just got 100%. I'm gonna hold back on saying which one I'd want. Matthew's already said what he, since Matthew said what he'd want, I'll tell y'all what I'd want. Honestly, I'd pick the Unimog because, I just think it's neat. Like that's the best way I can explain it. I just think it's neat. It looks really cool, and for that reason alone, I'd want one. That's my whole entire argument in a nutshell. I rest my case. So we'll see how the poll goes. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, and we'll let that poll run for a little bit. In the meantime, we'll gather a couple of more questions. So, Matthew, we're on to the next one.
So the next one goes to Marlene Mercer LSA, who puts in a $27 donation. And thank you very much, Marlene, for that support. She said, "You guys are killing it, guys. Keep being amazing. Keep it being amazing." And thank you very much, Marlene, for the kind words.
And thank you so much, Marlene Mercer, for saying that we're amazing and keep it up. That is incredibly kind of you. I'd also love to see your profile picture of the LSA flag. And I gotta thank everyone so much for saying kind things about this channel all the time, especially you, Marlene Mercer, because I didn't know about this, but Matthew, of course, Matthew is kind of like, let's see, he's kind of the head of the Lee Spring Army, the Secret Service or the Secret Police, whatever you want to call them, that make sure to keep an eye on everything going on out there that really has to pertain to us or anything relating to the Lee Spring Army at all, because we end up keeping an eye on all of it, whether it be good or bad. And we have seen that lately, there was like an innocent looking question, but the way due to how YouTube politics works and also how the question was kind of posed, we knew that it was more so not really a great thing. It was more so like a why would y'all kind of a question, and not in the greatest of light. But we saw that the responses to that question were some of the most heartwarming responses that we'd ever seen, because they weren't being made to us. They were being made to a third party, and I don't think any of those people knew that we'd ever look at any of those comments or ever even see them, because who knows that we end up seeing everything that's said about us. And I went through them right before we ran this stream tonight, all several hundred of them, and it was nothing but just the kindest words that people had said about this channel, about us being incredibly fun to be around, how we make everyone feel like they're family here, how we're always fun, we always have good jokes, we always make sure to be researched enough and have good news, good video sources, all that kind of stuff. And it was really crazy to see people saying that, not to us, but just into the wind, really, just to say that they actually enjoy this show, and it really meant a lot to me. It really actually blew me away a good bit, that people actually love this channel a lot. Y'all don't just say it to us because we're on the air and y'all just want to say something nice because y'all are here. Y'all actually believe it 100%, and it really put a lot of it into perspective, how big this channel is, and the fact that when the question was posed, the Lee Spring Army is such a strong force on the internet at this point. People know what it is. People say LSA, and people just know what the LSA is. And it just really blew me away. It absolutely, it really touched me a great deal. And I got to thank you so much, Marlene Mercer, for throwing in those kind words to us tonight. And not only that, supporting this channel and helping us to keep this thing running, because folks like you have helped us to be here for so long, to be able to make people feel like this channel is a family, and to be able to do all the things that we do, joking around, getting to cover the news, being here for literally history-changing days, and getting to talk about it as it's happening with all of y'all. Y'all have made this possible, and we would be nothing without each and every one of y'all. Both the people who throw in super chats and support the channel, the folks who hit the like button in the thousands, the people who were in the live chat every single night. We wouldn't be anything without each and every one of y'all. And I got to thank y'all all so much once again for being here with us and helping this channel to be possible, because if it wasn't for folks like y'all, we wouldn't be able to be here. And so thank you so much once again, Marlene Mercer. I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again.
Yes, indeed. And real quick here, I'm taking a look at this poll right here. Would you rather have a Ford Raptor R or a Mercedes Unimog? Somehow, the Mercedes Unimog won out at 54%.
No way.
And the Ford Raptor R is at 46%. And I'll be perfectly honest with you. I love the Unimog. I've been a fan of it forever. But I would much rather have that V8 Raptor. Obviously, I'll never have one, because even if I had the money, I would not pay $120,000 for a truck, because that is insanity. Absolutely crazy. And I don't have the money right now for it either, so it's not happening anyway. But even if someone gave one to me, I would say between the two, I'm taking the Raptor R, because that V8 sounds mean. Sounds so good. But it's just insanity. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say I've become a big fan of the Unimog, particularly because I watched that documentary today and I found out it started out as an agricultural vehicle. It was literally the replacement to the tractor. I wish I could pull up the video right now, Matthew, and show it to you and everyone else, but I feel like we might get copyrighted or something if I tried to show it, because it was actually from Mercedes. But it was a really cool documentary, and it made me have a lot more respect for the vehicle. And also, let me go see if I can pull this up, Unimogs in French Army service, because if I can get this video and show this to y'all, Unimog French Army, let me see if there is any clips of this on the internet, because I'll have to show it to y'all, because the little things just zipped around everywhere and it looks so goofy. They're like these cute little tiny trucks carrying soldiers with loads of rifles and loads of equipment, and I'd be damned I can't find it because it's just not there. But let's see, maybe, nope, that's not it. That's not it either. I be dipped. I am so saddened by this. But it was still really cool to see, and I was like, wow, isn't that cool? Isn't that cute? And I was like, you know what? Those are cool vehicles. Those are on the top tier list now for me. And so with that, I hope that does address that well, but very interesting to see that the Unimog won out. And Matthew, it wasn't the first option to click on, it was the second option, so people had to actually take the chance to go down one and click on the Unimog.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I did put it the second one. I was hoping I would give the Raptor a boost, honestly.
I see. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, and really cool poll. And with that, we are on to the next one.
In our next one here is going to go to Eternal Darkness, who puts in at 20 and says some cash to grow the belly, LSA from Finland. I tell you what, I'm starving out here. Thank you very much, Eternal Darkness, for the donation to the Chipotle Fund.
Why'd you say it like that? Like you maybe so suspiciously. Why'd you say it like that? It sounds like it's like the Chipotle was poisoned. But beyond that,
That was like the bulb going off my head. I was thinking what to eat. I was like, Chipotle, but they're closed.
man, they are closed. It's like I think they are. I think everything's closed right now except for like maybe McDonald's and Taco Bell. I think those are the only things that are open at this time of night. And I think hell, even the pizza places are closed by this point. But beyond that, I thank you. And also, by the way, Matthew, I'm just letting you know this on air. You'll be slipped a free meal after the show, if you know what I mean. But anyways, oh, thank God. But anyways, beyond that, I got to thank you.
We need them as a sponsor so bad.
I know.
Please sponsor us.
Okay, so to let y'all know, it's a certain kind of a thing that you can buy on like a plan, and they send you meals, and that could be anyone. So don't start throwing them in the chat because you might be wrong, you might be right. I don't know. But we can't give them an official shout out because we are trying to get sponsored by them, so we don't want to give them a free shout out because we want them to either give us free food, which is honestly the big goal is to get free food because that'll really help us to cut down the overhead a lot on living if we can get free food for a while, and then we'll sponsor them. So that's the thing. By the way, I want to say this, make this very clear. The sponsorship will never be on the live stream. It would be on a video because the live streams are always sponsor free and ad free. They always will be, and that never will change. But the videos work on a completely different monetization system because we have to run ads on them to promote them in the YouTube algorithms. And not only that, running sponsorships on those videos allows us to raise funds for future video projects that we're already starting to work on in the background a little bit, although it's baby steps at this point. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, so we can't shout them out. But Matthew is going to be getting a free one of them little meals, and they're really good. They're delicious, even nutritious, as a matter of fact, as well.
Otherwise, if it wasn't for that, I would be stuck with the hot dogs. Oh my god! Man, it sucks to eat a hot dog.
Oh man, everyone doesn't like the hot dog. Oh man, blocked them. Oh man, it hurts.
You do what you're told.
You do what you're told. But anyways, man, why in the world did he sound like an English aristocrat when he said that, though? You know, like. He goes from, I'm Conor McGregor to you'll do what you're told. It's like, what are you turning like King Charles all of a sudden?
Man.
Like,
That other guy was like, Connor, I'm gonna kick your ass, man. I'm gonna go in that ring. I'm gonna tear you up. And he said, hey, you'll do what you're told.
Man, that's so weird. But anyways, moving on from that. I do thank you so much once again for the support, helping the show keep running. And I hope that you see that we are starving. We are greatly appreciative of that Chipotle fund money because it's going to go immediately straight into our stomachs here right after the stream. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that the best I possibly can. And thank you so much once again for the support. We greatly appreciate it. We're starving. With that, we're on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Andy L., longtime channel legend. He puts in a 10 and says, Enforcer Matt, good luck tonight swatting the bots and the trolls. And thank you very much, Andy. I've had good luck with that tonight. I've gotten them out of the chat in under 5 seconds apiece. But I did have to cheat a little bit and turn on subscriber-only mode because the Russian bots were flooding in quite faster than I can keep up tonight. So I do use a little bit of Enforcer air defense on the side. And also Nightbot helps out too. It's still there. But thank you very much, Andy, for that support. And Enforcer, what say you?
And thank you, Andy, for the support. And Matthew has been doing a good job swatting the bots. And we always love to see it. I mean, it is beautiful to see Matthew going to work on those bots because Matthew puts them down. I mean, like he doesn't just kick them out. He puts them down. I mean, he's truly the executioner of the live chat, the bloody butcher, the bloody butcher of the live chat. But still, thank you so much once again for the support and helping the channel to keep on running. And also, by the way, someone just put in the chat. Speaking of food fun. Someone said Waffle House is open because we are in the South and that's a regional breakfast like restaurant chain. Yes, Waffle House is open, but the Waffle House that we're near is Brawlhalla. And also someone, I think, if I'm remembering correct, Matthew, got shot and killed out in front of that one like a year ago. So,
yeah, I think someone got capped.
Yeah, I think someone got capped, no cap, on God bussin' right out there like a year ago. So we generally want to avoid that one, because I don't want to go down there and get in the Thunderdome at like 1 in the morning. Like, like to be quite honest. And so with that, good idea though. Like if it was a normal Waffle House, it wouldn't be that bad. But this one. I don't know what it is about this one, but this one actually seems to bring out the violence. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to AMX10 Speedy Bang Bang, who puts in a $10 donation. Thank you very much, AMX10, for that support. Excuse me. AMX10 said, imagine...
Dude, I thought you just got tired of
sneeze.
living right there. You just went, it came in from AMX10 Speedy Bang Bang. I was like, why, do we need to get off air or something? I was like, you good, dude?
I was like 5 seconds away from like the biggest sneeze. But AMX10 said, imagine Putin turning his head when he hears the drone over Moscow like Mr. Bean did with the bee.
Oh yeah, dude, or better yet, when he looks like that meme of Willem Dafoe. Let me go find it. Willem Dafoe looking up. Let me see if I can find it. Yes, this is what I was thinking, and it pulled up perfectly. I'm talking about this. That's what Putin looks like when that drone flew over Matthew. He was like,
oh,
huh?
oh no.
Dude, he went, what? He's like, what is that? But that is what he looks like. Or it could be that one, Mr. Bean looking back at the bee. It could be either one. But in my mind, whenever I think of anyone looking up at anything, I always think of this meme of Willem Dafoe. And so thank you so much for the support. I hope that does address that well, but that was a really good one too about Mr. Bean. Mr. Bean was a class act character. I'm not gonna lie, very good character. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one is going to go to Rangers Rule, who puts in a $10 donation as well. And thank you very much, Rangers Rule, for that support. And no comment to address on this one, sadly. But also, big shout out to EEDD, who put in a 10 as well, along with Mark Anthony. And the Rangers Rule and EE and Mark did not leave a comment, sadly. But thank you all three very much for that support. And Enforcer, what say you?
And thank you, Ranger, EE, and Mark, both of y'all, for the $10 super chats. Neither of y'all threw in, not the three of you, threw in comments. But we still greatly appreciate the support because y'all are helping us to make this thing possible, helping us to keep on marching by each and every day, and I gotta thank y'all greatly for that, and I gotta thank y'all for wanting to help this channel to keep on running and finding it worthwhile to support it all, because if it wasn't for folks like y'all, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible and keep this thing rolling. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that the best I can, and with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here is going to go to, guess who? It's going to go to Duncan VR.
No way!
He puts in 11 Australian and says, Bamuba, Sugabliat, Baba, for the hot dog fund. Meow quack.
Man.
Oh, man, I'm telling you. Hot dog got 3 subscribers and 25 likes. Bamu, oh, man. He got to pay the electricity bill. Baba, the marmot sounds like what when he's hungry.
Thank you for the support, Duncan VR, and that super chat is juicy. And I gotta say, thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And like I was saying, no one likes hot dogs. I mean, it's just tough. It's a tough world out there in the hot dog business these days because from what we've heard, the hot dog market shrunk another channel today. I hate to hear it. It's a tragedy. But beyond that, I thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running because folks like you do help to make it possible. And also, but still, also, I would have to say that the electricity bill, that's actually the second priority right now. The first priority is how to even afford rent. Just like rent as a basic concept comes first. Then the electricity bill is the secondary concern at the moment. But with that, thank you so much once again for the support, Duncan VR, and being an absolute legend and helping us to keep this thing running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, well, you wouldn't be able to make this thing possible. And I gotta greatly thank you for throwing in the animal noises, and not only that, a very charged super chat. It's like Panera Bread's charged lemonade, only that it's not killing people. And I gotta thank you once again for support and making this thing possible. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one is going to go to Anthony Wilson, who puts in a 10. It says, Jack was drinking a hot cup of Russian roast on his horse. Jack was proudly flying his LSA flag, but he is too short. Will you please bring a stool and help Jack off his horse? Jaga Jaga, LSA.
And Chugga Chugga Eagle and LSA, baby. And I gotta thank you so much for the support. And I gotta say, we can help Jack off of his high horse. We'll just beat him now. Like, just knock him off the horse. But still, thank you so much for the support. And also, Russian roast set. I hate to say this, folks, because this was a really cool idea that we came up with a while ago about the coffee bean thing. It doesn't really seem like a lot of people are actually a big fan of buying Enforcer coffee roasts at the moment. So we're having to put that idea on hold for a little bit. It probably will not be an indefinite hold. We will eventually probably make it happen. It's just that it's not going to be next month's merch release. Because to let y'all in on the scoop, the plan was for a while was that we were going to release the LSA mugs this merch run, and then the upcoming merch run that will be at the later end of May was going to be a permanent store item, which was going to be the LSA coffee. And we were going to make that happen. But then we ran a poll, and only 6% of y'all wanted that. Everyone else wanted something completely different. 94% of y'all did not want coffee. And so we decided that we're going to shelve that idea, but we already have something else that we have gotten in motion.
Wait a minute, they got us. Wait a minute, who got us?
Oh, you know who it is. You know who it is, Matthew.
Oh, no, I think they're talking about the super chat.
What?
We've been had.
We've been had? What? Where? Where
I
have we
don't know,
been
I
had?
don't get it.
I don't get it either. Someone's like, get him! And I'm like, I don't know how y'all got us. But anyways, some of y'all may realize that if y'all go to the official EnforcerStore.com, there's nothing for sale there right now. There's no limited edition run. But if you look up at the top of the website, you can see that it's 19 days, 1 hour, 17 minutes, and 13 seconds.
Oh my God. Oh, no.
What?
Oh, goodness. We read off a doozy.
What? What do you mean?
Jack Horse.
Wait, hang on. Wait, what? I'm not
Jack Horse.
Ban this man.
What?
Ban this man. I want him gone now. But I'm just kidding. Fair enough. You had us. So beyond that, though, completely ignoring that we just completely got had, like in the worst way possible. We will be giving a pardon on that one, because that was crafty enough. Neither of us actually realized what was happening, so that one gets a pardon. But getting back to the merchandise run, it is 19 days, 1 hour, and 16 minutes until the next merch drop happens. We already have gotten pretty much everything lined up, and it is going to be one that we think that y'all will love. It's going to be something really cool, really unique, and Enforcer exclusive. So I cannot wait to tell y'all I can't wait to show y'all what it will be, and we will probably be showing off what it is about 5 days before the merch drop officially begins. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. Thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to Uncovered Cube, who puts in a 5 and says, do you think Putin would agree to a ceasefire by December or so, or would there be a full change of government first?
I think there will probably have to be a ceasefire by December, because his hands will be tied. I mean, Kaiser Wilhelm II wanted to carry on World War I, but his hands were really tied by mid-1918. They already knew that the war was lost, and they would have to end it one way or another. So I think that may be the way the Russians have to go, is that they know that the war will just have to end at that point, and their hands are really tied, and they can't really do anything. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. Thank you so much once again for support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Carrie Ann LSA, who put in a $5 donation. And also, let me see real quick. I thought Carrie Ann put in a comment. Let me go back and double check real quick. Let's see here. Let's see. Carrie Ann LSA. Scrolling back up to see real quick. Let's see here. I'm scrolling through a lot, actually. She did not leave a comment, but Carrie Ann, I'm very glad to hear that Nick is doing fine and he got through the surgery okay. I'm very glad to hear that, and everything went well, so that's very good to hear. And also, thank you very much for the support. And Enforcer, what say you?
And thank you so much for the support, Carrie Ann LSA. And we are so happy to hear that Nick got through the surgery fine and he's doing well. Let him know that we are wishing him the best. And we were waiting to hear an update from you to see how he was doing. And so we are extremely over the moon to know that Nick's still thinking we'll be back in this live chat here, hopefully in the future. Tell him that if he needs to rest for weeks, that is totally fine by us. We will be looking forward to his return. And thank you so much for sharing that with us. I think like 12 minutes into the stream tonight. I think it was almost right when the anthem, I think it was when the anthem was playing. But I got to thank you so much once again for sharing that with us. Thank you so much for letting us know about Nick's condition. And we cannot wait to have him back here. And I bet you can't wait to have him back at home. Well, he may be at home right now. But I bet you can't wait for him to be back to normal here soon. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that the best I can, Carrie Ann, and thank you for both of y'all being the first LSA couple and always being here, surgery permitting. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to Merck's Lady Bits, who puts in a 5 and says, unlike the food he serves, his streams aren't crowded. He is the worst. That's not the worst. LSA, take one from the chat.
Oh my god, dude. They're coming to
do what you're told.
You do what you're told. Oh man. But goodness gracious, that came in hot, man. I'm not knowing about you. I was like, dang. I was like, his streams aren't crowded. I was like, that ain't wrong. I mean, honestly, like 5 fans, that's not a lot. You know, like you can honestly do a little better, maybe 6. But beyond that, I got to thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running and making this channel possible. Because folks like you help to keep this thing running. And so with that, thank you so much once again. Thank you for throwing at something that really made me laugh. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, big shout out to John Scott, who put in a $5 donation without a comment. And thank you very much, John Scott, for supporting the channel and helping to keep us running. And we also have a 5 from Rob Wilkes, who says Moscow air defenses are a myth. Remember Matthias Rust's landing in Red Square in 1987. Russia is a paper bear.
A paper bear indeed. But actually, Matthias Rust, if that was the name, actually got through due to a whole bunch of coincidences. He actually almost got shot down, I think, 3 separate times. But each time, the actual order to shoot the plane down was waved off because he went, I think it's a student pilot, or something along those lines. And so he never got shot down. I don't know if you know that story, Matty, but a West German student pilot took a Cessna 172 and flew it all the way, if I remember correctly, from West Germany through the Baltic and then through Russia, and actually ended up landing the plane in Red Square. Like, it wasn't around Moscow. He literally flew in and landed it on the square.
Oh, I recall hearing about that, but I don't recall the details about the story, so very interesting.
Yeah, it was a whack story, man. And so he landed the plane and he got out, and what was crazy is that no one even showed up to arrest him for, like, I think it was like 2 hours. Although there was literally guards at the Kremlin, and I think if I was correct, Gorbachev was in the Kremlin when it happened, and no one came out and arrested him because they thought it was a student pilot that had engine troubles, and he just force landed his plane in the Red Square. So no one cared to check on the guy, but then finally, the police eventually came up after a while and were like, yeah, so what happened with your plane? And this guy was like, oh, hello, I'm from the German lands, and I want to encourage world peace. And they went, this guy is not a Soviet citizen. We need to call the KGB. And then the KGB came up and arrested the guy, and then they found out he's just some whack German guy who just flew all the way into Red Square. So then they eventually released him, and then they actually deported him back to West Germany. But still an insane story. I mean, absolutely insane. And then when the German guy was asked about it, even when he was like in the middle of being put on trial and stuff in Russia, they were like, why'd you do it? He's like, I just wanted to promote the world peace. And it's like, dude, you flew a Cessna to Red Square, man. It's like you did something that no one did before. It's like you could have carried some bombs on that thing, man. Like, although at that time, like the diplomatic tensions weren't really there to want to carry bombs to Moscow. That was still whack. That he was the first in the world to do something like that. And that guy said, "Hello, I am Matthias Vast. and welcome to Jackass. And he flew it straight into Moscow, just landed it in Red Square. Huge kudos to the guy. It was a goofy thing to do, but he had some balls to do it. So, got to give him kudos. He knew what he was doing. He wasn't an idiot. But with that, hope that does address that fairly well, and thank you so much once again for support. But Russian air defense did exist back then. It's just that they were incompetent like they are now. And so with that, we are on to the next one. But thank you so much once again.
All right, so our next one here is going to go to Blue Flam 777 LSA once again. He is back once more. He puts in a $50 donation, and thank you very much, Blue Flam, for the second large support of the night. He says, channel approved. Hopefully. He says, what do they serve for at the comedian workshop? Hot dog puns. For the dog... Question to the chat.
Oh, that last part, I was like, I don't know if that's channel approved, but still, man, we are getting some burns tonight, Matthew. Some very horrendous ones. I would say that these are third-degree burns straight out of the hot dog grease trap that are coming in these super chats. But I gotta thank you so much once again for support, Blue Flam 777, and helping this channel to keep on running, because like I always say, Blue Flam, folks like you help to make this channel possible. I can't say that enough. You really helped to make this channel possible, and thank you greatly for that. And also, I gotta say, good joke, solid joke. To be quite honest, though, we are taking a small, and when I say this, a small break from those jokes, because we have been hearing a little bit that people are getting tired of it. And to be quite honest, we are tired of it. That's why we joke about it. But I completely get why people are like, please, not again, because we're doing our own thing. It's going incredibly well on our end for our channel. So why even bring it up anymore? But we always have to every once in a while throw in that, oh man, and the occasional reference to hot dog grease traps and stuff like that. That's just a part of channel humor these days. But beyond that, we're trying to lay off a little bit. We're not quit cold turkey, but we're going to start really pulling it back a little. But if you
now we'll just simply say, you'll do what you're told.
No, better yet, the slander continues, or something like that. But anyways,
oh god, no, man.
Oh man, I know my legalese so well that I called it slander or something. But anyways, with that, thank you so much once again for support, Blue Flam 777, and helping this channel to keep on running. Folks like you help to make it possible, and if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to keep this channel running. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and also, real quick, I'm happy to report, very happy to report, actually, that this channel is now up to 211,223 subscribers.
Oh, dude, we hit that
very
a while ago. We hit that like an hour and a half ago. Yeah, I looked at it, I was like, sweet, and then I just kept running the show. But yeah, we've actually blown up a good bit today. Let me make sure that I got this right. We started at 210,850 subscribers today, and now we're up to 211,225. So we have got smashing, governor, and I think that we're going to be hitting 212,000 here really soon. But you know what's going to be a really cool number to hit, Matthew? 222,000, because it'll be all twos.
That will be cool. I like that. We just gained the amount of subs that some people out there, not going to call any names, but some people out there would love to gain in a year. But not calling any names, but you'll do what you're told.
Oh man, but with that, I hope that does address it well, and welcome to everyone who's new to the Lee Spring Army, which is our community. And by the way, like, to anyone new, because I always see people saying they don't explain what the Lee Spring Army is. Don't worry, if you stick around long enough, you'll find out everything about the Lee Spring Army. It's something that you just kind of learn from exposure. But it's certainly becoming a force to be. Well, a force to be reckoned with sounds like it's a danger, but it's really a force of being on the internet. I think that's a better way to say it, because people know what the Lee Spring Army is now. People know what LSA stands for. I think it has a fairly big presence out there now. So you'll eventually find out what the LSA is all about. But if you subscribe to this channel, you are by de facto a part of the Lee Spring Army. You do not have to super chat. You don't have to hit the like button. You don't have to be in the live chat a certain amount. It's just as long as you're a subscriber, you're a part of the Lee Spring Army. But still, huge congratulations to everyone on the channel. We finally hit 211,000 subscribers, and here's to getting to 212,000 very soon. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, so our next one's going to go to the Badger Bro, who puts in a 5. And thank you very much, Badger Bro, for that support.
Hey!
He says, Gazprom is the second army the West have to defeat the army at the front.
And that's very true. That's really true about every war, is that there are so many civilian armies that have to be defeated to defeat the actual ground army. Usually it's oil and steel, which are really like two of the most crucial ones out there. But even in the modern day, there's oil, steel, electronics components, and a million other categories as well. I mean, there's truly an endless amount. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And thank you so much for the support, Badger Bro, and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to James Up, who puts in the 5. And he said, all the software and hardware for refineries are Western companies, and they have no real way to rebuild refineries without them.
And that's true, and that's why it's so devastating to see these attacks. They're not little attacks that are causing a small amount of damage. These are attacks that are taking out these refineries permanently, and if they ever come back online, they hardly produce or refine the amount of oil that they were in the beginning, and then they get hit a second time by the Ukrainians, and then they get knocked out completely, like we saw with Ryazan. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, in the next one is going to go to CK Bold, who puts in a 5 and says, take a live chat question. And CK Bold has put in the most consistent super chat in the history of the channel, I have to say. I just thought about tonight. CK Bold has put that in for hundreds and hundreds of nights. The consistent take a live chat question has become a staple on the channel, and we call it the number 5 now, thanks to CK Bold. So we're going to get the number 5. And thank you, CK, for that support. And this one goes to Quantum Fighter, who says, didn't Gazprom have their own Wagner-style militia at one point?
Let's see.
I think they did.
Yes, they
had
did.
The oil workers out there trying to protect the plants.
No, actually, they were sent to Bakhmut, believe it or not. They were actually in the Battle of Bakhmut when it was in full swing, right near Wagner. They had the Torch and Flame units, and from what we know, they've been disbanded now. But they actually had mercenary companies that were fighting in the worst battle outside of Avdiivka that happened in the war in Ukraine. And their units were like Mickey Mouse named units, Torch and Flame, like two things that are related to the oil and gas industry. That would be like to make a comparison, that would be like Disney making a mercenary company, and they call one Mickey and they call the other one Goofy. Like that's what Gazprom did with their mercenary names. It's like, that is a little weird. Like, you know, it's like these are fighting units. Why not just call it like, you know, like I would if I ran a company in Russia and then I raised private military units, I would just call them, you know, like Regiment 1, Regiment 2 or something like that. I wouldn't come up with like these stupid like corporate names like we're trying to conduct a PR stunt. That seems a little ridiculous, but that's what they actually did have them. So you are correct. Gazprom did have mercenary units at a time, but they got rid of them after the Wagner coup because that set a bad precedent for private companies having their own mercenary groups. But with that, I hope that does address that well, and thank you so much once again for support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, so our next one here is going to go to, let's see, Philip Fixes LSA, who puts in a 5, and says, A-10 can be used for drone interception like the Yak, and that those hard points can be AIM-9s or modified for unmanned flight and used as a frontline bomber. And he said, please add to my super chat, just because it's outdated for its original task doesn't mean it's not suited for a new one.
And that's true. That's true. That's certainly true of the B-52. The B-52 is going to serve forever. And I honestly don't have complaints about that because the way they use it now, I mean, it would be a fairly reliable platform, even in the modern day. So in my honest opinion, you're right. I mean, the A-10 could probably have a new lease of life. I just think that the 30mm gun on it isn't going to be that useful. Well, wait a minute, actually, scratch that. For drone defense, it probably would end up being pretty good, because if you could fit that thing out with proximity fused rounds, where they would detonate near a target in the air, that would be incredibly nice. You could use that thing as a drone devastator at that point. And so yeah, I would actually have to say that's not a bad idea at all to try and repurpose it. But the thing is that if the military tries to repurpose something, it costs a decent amount of money. It usually costs takes several years to go through the development phase for it and then the production phase. And by then the war in Ukraine would be over. But if we wanted to use the A-10 still in America, in some way, shape, or form, we could do that for ourselves and then sell them off for wars in the future or give them away during wars of the future. And so with that, I hope that does address that well, but really good point. And thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, so our next one here is going to go to Quantum Fighter, who puts in a 5 and says, "What do you say, LSA? We got to get the enforcers on TV. Can we? AB local news raised about 2 million in aid, and it's actually about 1.3. And he said that their work ethic and non-biased news is worth it alone. And thank you, Quantum.
And thank you so much for the kind words, Quantum, and thank you so much for wanting to get us on an actual TV station. We've actually thought about that a little bit, and you know, I like if a TV station came up to us and asked us to be on. I think at this point we wouldn't refuse it unless if we knew that it was some kind of a nefarious reason to have us on, like if they were trying to like set us up to try and be a straw man or something like that, then we might avoid going on. But if it was like something in general, like if we ever got invited onto a talk show, I would be like, yeah, hell yeah, let's go on the talk show. Why not? You know, we'll go up there, we'll talk about what we do, and maybe a lot of people will come and join us over here or something like that. But of course, Matthew and me would have to go as a group, because in the past we have had some people who try and just take me or take Matthew and just go out on their own and act like, you know, either me or Matthew are the only people on the channel, and it's actually both of us. So if anyone,
we've both gotten stuffed at this point as well, because Mario Narfall, whatever the hell his name was like, yeah, Narwhal or whatever the hell. He was like, "You want to come on or whatever?" And I was like, "Well, we got to bring the enforcer. He's like the main guy in the show, so he's got to go." So then they were like, "Okay, he can bring him on too." And then they stuffed us. And then the other guy, who we won't mention, stuffed me and said, "Oh, well, I just wanted the enforcer on here." And then he stuffed you. So we've both been shafted pretty much.
Yeah. At one point or another, people have just tried to put the short end of the stick to the other host, and that's so stupid to me, because it's like it's like a package deal. That's also why we don't really like when people say, like, and make it very clear, oh, I don't really like the enforcer or Enforcer Matt. I only like Enforcer Matt or the enforcer. Because that's really, like from our end, it's really rude, because it's not like you're going to have one without the other. We're always going to be here together. So when people say that, we're always like, why do y'all want to make that clear that you don't really like one or the other? It just makes the other one feel bad for no reason, because we're still going to be here together at the end of the day. Like, so, you know, that's always something weird. But like, if, like, the only time I could ever see going as a guest alone on a show, either for Matthew or for me, is if they wanted to interview Matthew alone, just on how everything kind of works behind the scenes on the channel, because he does a lot of stuff on that. I don't really, that's not my wheelhouse. So going to that interview for me would be pointless. Matthew could go out there and live his best life. But if it was something where an interview happened where it was just literally entirely analysis, and they just wanted me on, I mean, even then I would still be like, Matthew's got to go, because Matthew talks a lot of analysis on this channel too these days. Back at the beginning he didn't, but nowadays he has a lot of his own ideas of his own. So, you know, if I go, I still believe there really is no instance where I go alone to anything. He would go too, because if they're asking me any questions that I can answer, Matthew has his own opinion on those as well. But on behind the scenes channel stuff, on some things, especially merchandising and how the live chat runs and stuff like that, if anyone wanted to talk about how our channel actually works, most of those things I'm hardly really involved in beyond like the overview, like the designs of stuff. So that would be more of like a Matthew thing. He could go do that on his own, but you know, that's how it will work. But you know, if we ever did get invited onto a TV show, as long as we knew that it was a place where we weren't going to be set up and have people try and like shoot us down for, you know, entertainment reasons, I would be fine with going. I would be fine with, I would be, I don't know about Matthew, I would be fine with going. And you know, maybe
I still want to get ambushed, because you know that they sometimes lure you on there to ambush you. They'll lure you on like, oh, let's talk about your stuff, your accomplishments and everything. And then they lure you on there and they're like, so why do you support a corrupt regime like Ukraine? Tell us a little bit about why you do that. And they're like, whoa, what? Like, hey, now what? I've seen that happen to several people. In fact, I think at one point, one of the news outlets, one of the mainstream ones, brought on a YouTuber. I can't remember his name. I think it was the All Gas No Brakes guy or something like that. They brought him on and basically ambushed him when they did an interview on the guy. and it didn't go well. So I don't want to end up like that.
Yeah, that's one thing that does scare us a little bit, is that you never know. And the thing about, like, in being completely unfiltered with y'all, the thing about so many people saying all kinds of stuff on the internet is that a lot of people are really brutal. Like, they don't show that to your face, like on the public end, like to y'all. Like, YouTubers don't show how brutal they are, but YouTubers in particular, and I'm about to extend this over into the TV world, YouTubers behind the scenes are honestly most of the time jackasses. That's what we've run into as a personal experience. That's why y'all may notice we're not really that apt to have guests on our show anymore. And if people asked us to be on our show, they probably have a very low chance of getting on the show. Because there are nice people out there. But the amount of nice people versus people who are here just to try and get on our show, to get in front of our audience and try and steal off subscribers or something like that, is a much higher ratio than the amount of people who just want to be on our show because they think we're cool or something like that. Honestly, in our personal experience, I don't think really anyone has come on this show just because they want to be here and talk with us. They really just want to be in front of y'all and try and get subscribers and stuff like that. Because in the end, none of the relationships that we've tried to build, and that we actually legitimately tried to build behind the scenes, it ever really ended up persisting or lasting. Not because of a lack of effort on our end or unlikability or anything like that. It's just because these people don't give a damn about keeping up any kind of relationship behind the scenes, unless if it is getting them on our show and getting them in front of people that might be able to be new subscribers for them. That'll make them more money through ad views or something like that. And after experiencing that for a bit, I'm like, I'm not really a big fan of intermingling with really any other YouTubers. It'll be a very rare instance if we do. And then with TV, it's kind of the same thing, but TV is more brutal because, like many of y'all will see with reality shows, they'll bring someone on and say, hey, we just want to show you something. And then they'll get on there and be like, you fat, miserable piece of shit. And then they just like tear these people down on TV for entertainment. And they do that on TV as well. They'll bring people on, or a news company will interview people and act like it's an innocent interview. And then in the edits, they will tear these people apart on public airwaves across the entirety of the country. And that's something that I feel like it's not just a thing with YouTube, it's really endemic to the media sphere as a whole, that a lot of people don't really have good intentions for other people, and they don't really care what kind of damage they cause to people's reputations or anything like that. They're just looking for that quick, short-term gain. So, that's largely what we've seen, at least from my experience. That makes me a little bit scared about going on a TV show. If it was a talk show, though, a talk show is one thing, though, Matthew, that I know it couldn't go wrong, because you don't get ambushed on a talk show.
Sometimes you don't. I'll be honest with you. I don't really trust too many people that are running shows and things like that, because the truth of the matter is, no matter how we try to look at it, the other people in the YouTube space view this as a very competitive business. They try to portray it like it's not a business, but that's really what it is. And they view us as competitors. And that goes for talk shows as well, and depending on which one it is. And I wouldn't want to go on somewhere and let someone either get the edge on you to try and make you look bad for no reason, or bring someone on that is like just basically, like you said, trying to gain and scrape our subscribers from us. Because we've had that happen, I think, pretty much all the time in the past.
Yeah, every time.
And I wouldn't want that to happen again.
And then people, we make sure to avoid saying names, because if you say their name, then they get offended, although it's true. This one, we had a whole bunch of guests on one time, and then we were rounding out the show, and here comes who, Matthew, who gets in the live chat. Hey, can I be on your show? And we're like, nah, because that night it actually gone badly. We would bring the guests on, and they wouldn't even give a shit about talking to us in the intermissions. When y'all were all watching an ad or something, we would get people on and be like, hey, what's up? Hey, And that's it. Like, they wouldn't talk to us or anything like that. The only time they would talk was when they were on air. And the only thing that they would do the entire time, it seemed like almost every time, is that they would either act like we're stupid, or they would try and act like, we were flawed with our logic and they were obviously better. And that whole thing was a ploy by most, if not all of them, to try and make us look stupid. And if you subscribe to my show and watch me, and we pull y'all away from the enforcer, y'all will be able to get the real deal over here. And that's what the tactic and the strategy was every time. So by the end of that night, we were not happy at all with having guests. We were like, you know what, we might take a break from this. And so then later on down the road, the person that we're talking about, that y'all don't know the name of, but they came in the live chat and wanted to be on the show, later on down the road, they decide that they just want to tear us a new asshole, and for no reason at all, and just hop into something that's none of their business, just because they can. And then it turns out that they apparently they deal with that with everyone like that behind the scenes, including Hot Dog Man. So it's like, like with the YouTubers, and I hate to say this because I know a lot of people would love to see guests on here. I don't think we're ever having a guest again. I mean, it's not that we hate people or anything like that. I would love to have guests. It's just that from what I've experienced, guests don't give a damn about being on the show to try and build up a friendship or a camaraderie or anything like that. They're entirely here for a business minded purpose. So that's kind of the lay of the land. I'm trying to say that as best I can, and also and then a whole bunch of people will look at this as we are trying to view them as competition. And honestly, I could give a damn about most of them. Like I don't even watch their channels. I don't even know most of the time what they're doing, unless if it has something to do with us, and then we get told about it, and then I go look at it. But most of the time, I just don't care. Like if I would be scared of other YouTube channels if they even did what we did, but none of them do. So none of them run large live streams. We kind of just, we're kind of the only one who do that. And on top of that, we're the only one who does our own unique thing. And people have tried to imitate that over time. I mean, honestly, most YouTube channels started off after we started, like months later, and a lot of them would kind of like try and imitate our style, because it was almost like the prototype style for this content category, because we were the first one here. But then they eventually do their own thing, because we do our thing. There's no way that you can copy that, much like you can't copy other people's styles. But
we say what we want, and you'll do what you're told.
And also, some people are talking about other kinds of guests, like General Petraeus. If we could get generals on the show, like as far as having other YouTubers on as guests, that's never happening. From this point forward, I just know it won't, because I'm personally not going to allow that to happen. I was the one actually pushing for it back in the day. I learned my lesson. I evolve as a character, and we're not having them back on. But as far as having on guests that are outside of YouTube, we would be totally up for that. We wouldn't put them on a live stream, though. We would probably make it a completely separate thing of its own, because I think that would be really cool to do things like interviews with Petraeus, interviews with other guests that we have, not guests, but interviews with viewers that we have on the show that have been a really big part of modern history and the way the world's been molded. And I'm not going to say their names because some of them don't want to be, have their names said on air, but we could certainly try and interview folks like that. Honestly, I would love to interview all kinds of folks. Really, like, one cool thing I was thinking that we could do as a series is like and hear this out, because this is going to sound a little completely against Channel Grain, but y'all see that it is within Channel Grain. One thing in my head that would be really cool is to do a view of a life interview where we talk to as many politicians as we can in the United States, and instead of talking to them about anything political, the entire interview is just talking about their life story. So that would be something that I was like, that would be pretty interesting, because you kind of get to know a lot more about the people who are in positions in this country, not just their policies or anything, but just like their mindset, how they talk, who they are. I personally find that to be interesting to hear the life stories of people, whether they were in the military, whether they were in politics, whether they were large company executives, or just your average run-of-the-mill kind of folk that live throughout most of the country. Interviews like that, I always find incredibly interesting, and that would be a cool one to do. And it would be cool to do that in all kinds of categories. I just find that kind of content fun to watch whenever I get to find it on YouTube. But maybe y'all wouldn't, maybe y'all would.
It's just if we ever bring a guest on again, and I would probably like recommend not bringing on another YouTuber or a talk show host or something like that, because they're still gonna have that competition mindset going on. It's not gonna be good. But if someone else came on, like for example, a military expert, maybe a general or something like that, if they would just come on and we can put aside all pretenses and things like that and just come on under the impression you're coming on with two 23-year-old guys to talk about the war, and nobody's trying to act like someone's smarter than the other one or anything like that, and just come on and have just a conversation, just a level conversation about the war, that would go over extremely well. But I think the trouble is when you bring folks on, they don't know you that well, and the first interaction you have with them is trying to do an interview. It's somewhat awkward until you do a couple of interviews with them, and the odds of having them back for multiple interviews is probably not very high. So we had to find a way to like get to know them a little bit beforehand, like maybe talk to them off stream or something like that, to try to get them more comfortable to be on air. So that way it would be a good interview.
Yeah, I think that would be certainly a big move as well. And also another thing that we found is that and this is actually something that Matthew dealt with in the past, because talking a little bit about behind the scenes stuff, Matthew was actually a little bit scared to talk on air at the beginning, because he didn't really know how the channel really works, because he had just gotten on the channel, and also on top of that he didn't really know a lot particularly about the Ukraine war, but he's learned loads since then. That's why he adds in so much now, and he's such a big part of pretty much just being a second host on the show. And people actually end up having a decent amount of stage fright, especially when dealing with audience sizes like we have, because like tonight alone there were 10.3 thousand people on at one time, and if you ever tried to visualize that as a room, it's not a room, it's actually like a football stadium sized crowd of people. That's actually, funnily enough, that's like a political rally sized group of people that were on this live stream at the peak tonight. And a lot of people get scared when they think about that, because they're thinking that literal tens of thousands of eyes are on them, and they're listening to everything they're saying and stuff, and that can end up causing people to actually freeze up and be less engaging and less interesting when they're actually on camera live on air, because
It's true. It's true, man. And I'll be honest. I was intimidated as hell when I first came on this thing. I was like, I don't know, like that's a lot of people listening and stuff like that. And until you're speaking, obviously we're sitting in front of a screen right now with a microphone, so we don't see you all in front of us. But when you really when I first started wrapping my mind around like 4,000 or 5,000 people listening to me talk, thinking if I say something that sounds real stupid or something like that, I'm going to be looking really stupid in front of 5,000 people. So that was intimidating. But luckily though, you get used to it over time. But if we move to in person with like 5,000 people out there, something like that, that would probably be a new level of like, whoa, like you got to get over that stage fright. I think it'd be something else for both of us, because that'd be crazy. But really, like to visualize 5,000 people like in a stadium or seating or something like that, and that's how many people are watching the live stream right now. That's just insane.
it's actually crazy. But you know what's even crazier, Matthew, was the night that we had 55,000 live viewers, which is literally a football stadium of people just watching. Like, thinking about that, we would be standing down on the 50-yard line in the middle of a football field with the stadium filled on both sides, and we're covering the news. And that is really weird when you think about it like that. But one thing I've learned, and this is something that I just kind of carry with me now, because the streams really taught me this, because I was really scared at the beginning too, on like the first 2 weeks of the show when there were thousands of people here every night, because I was like, damn, this is a lot of people. Like if I screw up and say anything wrong, we're going to be in deep shit. Well, I'm going to be in deep shit. Matthew wasn't here yet, so it was just me. I was like, I'm going to be in deep shit. So after a while, I just got over it. Like, it does not matter how many people are around anymore. I could talk in front of crowds of hundreds, thousands, and I wouldn't care, because eventually, I don't know, something mentally changes where you just kind of realize, you're going to be you. If people don't like you, they're not going to like you already. So it doesn't matter if there's one person in front of you or 10,000 people in front of you. It's really going to be the same thing. And so that's something that I've taken away from running YouTube, and that's why I get on air and we're so comfortable sounding. I mean, we don't sound tense or anything. It's almost like we're chit-chatting to each other normally, because this is how we sound off air. And we just talk, because you just realize there's not really a lot of anything to really be scared about, because people were going to like you or hate you already. It's just a matter of having a lot more people liking you or a lot more people hating you on any given day. So it doesn't really, change much of anything. It's just the numbers of people liking you and hating you has increased massively compared to normal. But with that, I hope that goes through all that incredibly well about guests and everything like that in the future and going on TV because it's a possibility. But Matthew brought up some very good reservations, and I don't know, maybe one day we will. But I'm not racing to get there. If someone asks us to get on air, we would have to know in advance, what's going on, why are we there, all that kind of stuff. And if we got on, I will tell you all this up front. If we got on air and they immediately tried to ambush us, I'm taking a microphone off and I'm walking away because we are not going to be around to try and be ambushed or anything like that. Like you make the intentions clear, and if you don't, we move on. And so with that, I hope that does
Put some respect on my name.
Put some respect on my name. But with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Rocco World Domination, who puts in a 5 and says, would it be possible for Ukraine to knock down the Gazprom head office that you showed earlier, and what would be the effects if they did?
That would be a massive war crime for the most part because Gazprom owns the building, but they only run their headquarters out of a few floors. There are a lot of other different companies that are in the Latka Center. If you blew that tower up and it came down like the Twin Towers at 9/11, you would kill tens of thousands of people who were in that building that had nothing to do with the war effort at all. So it would actually end up being probably one of the worst. It would actually just blowing up that building alone, if everyone was in their office on a busy day, that would actually be worse than all of the Ukrainian civilians that died in Mariupol in terms of numbers. There probably would be 10 to 15,000 more people that would die in that building than everyone who died in Mariupol during that battle. So probably not a great thing, but that's what would happen. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Burning Wolf, who puts in a 5 and says, has there been any news on Ukraine receiving the Hawk systems that the U.S. was planning to send there while the $61 billion support was tied up?
We haven't actually heard about the Hawks. Great question. Because we heard about them wanting to send the Hawks, and we heard that they were going to send them, but we haven't heard about them arriving in Ukraine yet, and we haven't seen any proof of their usage either. So at the moment, we understand that they're not there yet. They have not been provided, and we have no additional information to tell us if they're even on the way. But with that, thank you so much once again for support, and I hope that addresses kind of the informational black hole we're having right there at the moment. But thank you once again for helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And also, let's see here. Andrew Brill said, you tweeted today about the ammo stockpile being depleted from USA stock. Does this affect our military readiness to respond, or is it just temporary lost material? So Andrew Brill, the Twitter is actually pretty much run by me, like the retweets and the tweets and things like that. If I'm thinking about the right tweet that I think you're referring to, it was about the report of the U.S. saying that even though we're supplying weapons and ATACMS to Ukraine, we're able to replenish them fast enough not to actually hurt our readiness to respond. That was pretty much the whole point of the post, was that we're actually replenishing it at a pretty good level. So we're not putting ourselves at risk, at least according to the information that's out there, of actually having an ammo shortage ourselves. So that was good to hear. So also I hope that clears it up as well. But anyways, moving on to our next one here. We have one from Mandy Carroll, who puts in a 5. And it says, can you mention the Muga, make Ukraine great again? That some politician used in the video of hers.
Well, sadly, I thank you for the support, but sadly, I can't mention anything that has to do with domestic politics, because I don't know anything about that in context. I don't know if that's something that's being pushed by one party to demonize the other or anything like that. And I can't really.
I know what it was about. It was good.
Really?
Yeah, it was. That's what you call eating your foot, big league. Someone was against Ukraine. I'll say it neutrally, generically, so it doesn't, piss anybody off. Some politician out there decided they don't like Ukraine whatsoever, and that's fine. You don't have to like Ukraine; it's a free country. But they came out holding a hat that said "Muga" on it, and it stands for "Make Ukraine Great Again," and they were mocking it. So now everyone's put up these Muga hats for sale, supporting Ukraine, and they're selling off the shelf. And that was the complete opposite goal of what they were trying to accomplish, which was trying to get people off of Ukraine.
How the hell do you get people off of Ukraine by making a hat that says "Make Ukraine Great Again"?
No, they were mocking the thing. The politician was mocking the hat.
Oh, okay. Now I get it. I had to say that twice. But with that, thank you for the support. I hope that does address that incredibly well, because I still don't really know a lot about it. But still, thank you so much once again for supporting this channel and helping us keep this thing running, because folks like you help to make it possible. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Robert, who says, I love the rabbit holes, and they're fun and educational. I enjoy those Pringles.
Hey, and thank you so much for enjoying the rabbit holes, because they're like, rabbit holes are either hated or loved on this channel. I can't help it. Like, Matthew can tell you, I can't help it. I actually went to a rabbit hole today while I was eating supper, and my mom was like, "Stop!" because I can actually tell you what the rabbit hole was, because Matthew was there for it. I was giving a rabbit hole about the history of Haiti and the Dominican Republic growing side by side and how they ended up in the way they were today. And Matthew was tired of hearing it, and my mom was tired of hearing it by the time I was getting done. So if you hate it, that's fine. My mom hates them, and she lives with me, so completely understandable if you don't like them. But I'm so happy to hear, Robert, that you like them, because someone out there's got to like them eventually. And I'm happy to hear that you do love them, because it's something that I can't help. I just learned everything about the world, and I love to let people know everything I can about the world if they don't know about it. I just love sharing it. It's fun to me, and it's also fun for people to go, wow, you know, that all clicks together like a Lego set, how it all comes together. But still, thank you so much once again for the support. Thank you for enjoying the rabbit holes, and thank you for finding them to be informational and interesting, because I hope that they are. I always try and pull out a really interesting rabbit hole that folks may not know about. But still, thank you so much once again, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to BC Skyman, who puts in a $3 donation, and thank you very much, BC, as well, for that generous support. We also have a 2 from Marc-Andre Burnett, as well as Bruce Lee, who put in a 2. And a huge shout out to BC, Mark, and Bruce very much for that support, and thank you all for helping to keep the channel running. And we also have a 2 from Uncovered Cube, who says, heard of the Cumberland Falls moon bow. It's cool. Bow!
Bow, my boy, bow! Can you reread that one again?
Have you heard of the Cumberland Falls moon bow? It's cool.
The Cumberland Falls moon bow. Is that like bow, B-O-W?
Bow, yes.
Moon bow. The moon bow. Let me go look at the... Oh, wait a minute! I think I have seen this. This waterfall right here. If this is it, I have seen this before. It's actually kind of a little popular in some pictures on like old postcards when I was a kid. So I've seen this a good bit before. So yes, I have seen this, and I thank you so much for the support and sharing this with us and letting us look at it, because this brings memories down memory lane. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to Smile JJ200, who puts in a 2 and says 132 battles won.
And I'm not sure which country you're talking about, but that is cool. that is, I'm assuming Ukraine, and that is good to hear that they have won 132 battles. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to AKA Pigeon Kicker, who puts in a 2 and says 80. Huh?
Don't be kicking those damn pigeons. Like, what are you doing kicking pigeons? Like, don't kick them. They're just little, like, they're flying city rats. Don't kick them. They're cute. But what did he say? Like, what did he say, though?
It's 87 through 93 Army Euro/Gulf. Trained with the FL Cav.
Oh, that's really cool. And I'm guessing that is the, reread that last part again about the something FR Cav.
Train with the FL Cav.
FR. I think that's the Foreign Legion, I believe. And that is, if I'm hearing that correct, that is incredibly cool to hear. And I got to thank you for the support. And that is really cool to know that you were able to train beside them. Were they cool? Did their uniforms look neat? Were they good at what they do? Let us know. Share with us. But still, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And also, I'm told there's a bot in here, but let's see here. Let's see. Are you seeing a bot in the chat? Because I'm not seeing them.
I'm personally not seeing one at the moment.
Well, anyway, we'll keep an eye out for them. But our next one goes to John Bartley, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, John, for that support as well. It's very generous. He says, I know we are at the end of the stream, but I'd really like to know what are both of your opinions on some military people in chat's opinion about why we aren't sending Predator and MQ-9 Reaper drones to Ukraine.
Mostly, from what I understand, the reason why we're not sending them is because the TB2 Bayraktar is the preferred drone of the Ukrainian armed forces, and even then, that drone has ended up being attrited so greatly they've decided to ground most of them for most operations, and they're very lightly limited now for very rear line reconnaissance operations because they ended up getting shot down a lot by air defense about several months into the war. The reason why we're not sending the Predator and the Reaper is because they would really end up the same way. They would end up getting shot down greatly by air defense, and so they're pretty much pointless. The drones that Ukraine needs are smaller and more usable by the infantry for the most part, instead of larger strategic overview kind of drones like the Reaper and the Predator would be, almost used like an Air Force aircraft would be. And so with that, I hope that
I think
does.
there's a big cost disparity between the two, like the Bayraktar and the MQ-9. I think they're a huge difference in prices.
I think so as well, and I think the other big thing is that it would largely be ineffective in the kind of combat conditions found in Ukraine, at least for now, in my opinion. But still, thank you so much once again for support, John Bartley, and helping this channel to keep on running. I hope we were able to address that well, and no problem at all with it being near to the end of the stream. We were happy to answer questions, no matter if they're at the beginning or the very end. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Terrence Custer, who puts in a 2 and says, "Here's a deuce for the Marmot Minute."
Hey! And you know what? It is time for that. It is time. And Matthew, how many super chats do we have left, by the way?
That is the last one.
Nice. I was about to be like, man, please. I was like, it's 12:30. We've been on for 3.5 hours. But let's see here. Hang on. It's loading. It's loading like a fax machine. Hang on. Hang on, everyone. Hang tight. Hang tight. It's almost loaded in. It's almost loaded in. It's almost there. We got it. Hey! It's the Marmot. Oh, hello there.
Hello there. Can I interest you in a plum or some rock? But you know what you could do in the end, though? You know what you could do? You can do what you're told.
Oh man, what if I don't want to do what I'm told? Oh man, I'm gonna rally an army against you. 2 hours later. Okay, they all told me to F off, but I guess, but I guess that what matters is the friends we made. Not screw that. We didn't even make any friends along the way either. But F. Ew, yuck. But anyways, with that,
That's it, you guys. Recruit harassment. That's right, recruit harassment. Oh man. Oh no, mission failed. I've been blocked by them all.
oh man, how the tables turn. How the tables do turn. I'm telling you what. Oh goodness.
Guys, I can't see my friends. I can't see my friends anymore. They blocked me. Why'd they block me? They don't know where their brain connects to their body.
Better yet. Oh man, I used his face in the thumbnail and I got chewed out.
And then I recruited some guy who's like off his rocker. There's a pastor to come out here and talk about, I'm going to get the Ukraine boys on you. He's doing wonders for me.
Oh man, and then all everyone else had to say is, I'm ashamed of the hot dog man. I'm ashamed of the hot dog man.
Now I can get behind that one. I can get behind
that one. I can get behind that one. We will have to send that forward for a soundbite. And we will of course have to pass that by the most violent preacher on the face of the planet as well. Like we'll have to send it by him. But anyways, nevertheless, I will say that it is a wonderful Marmot painting. Just getting off the fly, it is a wonderful Marmot painting. We love the Marmot. Alan loves us. Alan loves the Lee Spring Army. And we got to say, thank you so much for the support. And thank you for wanting a minute of Marmot. Because I think this was a little bit more than a minute. It's actually like 2, maybe 3 minutes. But we are so happy to have the Marmot here with us tonight. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support. Thank you for being our final super chat of the night and letting us get to see the Marmot. And with that, it's time for us to move on into the Morse code deciphers and the live chat. But due to time constraints, we will be able to address the Morse code message, and then we'll be able to get 3 live chat questions, and then we'll be rounding out the stream. And so with that, what do we got, Matthew?
In this The Morse code tonight goes to Cliff Simonson, Mark Hodges, Earl Bernew, Paul Schultz, Kevin J, Rumpelstiltskin, David Millsaps, and Toxic Bananas. I just spotted that bot, by the way. There he is. He was sneaking. But anyways, the Morse code goes to these people right here, the whole roster. I'll get all mixed up. They said these people right here did it. But anyways, Enforcer, LSA Suncorp reports tonight's Morse code offering is they can't even protect Moscow City. How can you have a victory? Baby, when you can't protect the city.
Baby.
Oh, is that serious?
No, it's not. It sounds like there may have been a small typo in there, but that's the sound of money and baby. Oh yeah. But anyways, y'all got that right. Y'all got it. Y'all largely got it right. It was about a Victory Day parade. But beyond that, the Morse code messages sound largely enough correct, so it's correct. But I got to thank y'all for getting that correct on the 799th day of the war. Tomorrow's going to be day 800, which is crazy to think about, but we'll be able to be here and covering that news on the 800th day of war with all of y'all. And so with that, thank you so much to each and every one of y'all once again for watching this, for deciphering this Morse code message. I was about to go into the outro because it feels like we should be doing that, but thank y'all for getting the Morse code message correct for so long. And so with that, we are on to the third to last question of the night.
And this one goes to Alu Shamadak, who says, what else can Ukraine hit besides oil easily to cripple the Russian economy?
Oil on the road. Let's see, they could hit, major infrastructure. They could hit bridges. They could hit rail yards. They could hit steel plants. They could also hit arms factories. They could hit electronics facilities, although there's almost none in Russia. You could hit military headquarters. You could hit major supply hubs, warehouses, things like that. Those would have about the same effect as hitting the oil refiners. But the oil refiners are still going to be the greatest target of them all because their effect will be very serious to every aspect of Russia, not just one. And so with that, I hope that does address that incredibly well. And we are on to the second to last question of the night.
And this one goes to Old Warrior, who says, does Macron have the political will to fight? You know what? Macron always gets the political will to fight whenever they put him on the front of a magazine. Now, because I saw he showed up on the front of a magazine. I think it was The Economist or something like that. I can't remember exactly which magazine it was. But that's where he sort of made those statements that he made today. Macron gets very excited when they put him on the cover or something, and I think he gets a little bit overly excited. But we'll have to see. Time will tell. But Enforcer, what say you?
Dude, he's just there. Oh, being the leader of France is fairly normal business. Yeah, I'm gonna work on the economy and a whole bunch of other things. Oh, the Economist is coming. Oh, bring them in. I'm going to kill the Russians. It's like, wow. It's like, dude, he went off.
China.
Dude, he went off. It's like, dang, look at him go. But I think he actually has the political will, not just because the Economist talked to him, and that's where he ended up on the front of the cover. I think it's seriously because he actually has a little bit of ambition for that. Because world leaders don't say things without at least believing that they may be followed through on a little bit at some point, some eventuality in the future. And so with that, well, that's not entirely true, but we'll work with that just to answer that question. So with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And we are on to the final question of the night. And so, who is the lucky last person to throw in the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is Uncovered Cube, who says, are the French taking over as the European power?
Yes, actually, funnily enough, France has always tried to vie to be the power of Europe, even as far back as the 60s. Actually, even farther back in the 50s, when they actually created the very beginning of the European Union. Because at the beginning of the EU, it was literally just France and Germany tied together. And that's actually the weirdest thing, because the French were the ones who started it, and they went, oh, would you like to join us, Germany? And Germany went, yes, we would like to join you. And so then they combined, and that was how the EU was formed. And so they've always been trying to vie for that position, in my opinion. And it looks like they're really trying even harder now. But the thing is that they don't have the economic power. Germany actually would be the one better poised by economic power alone to be the leader of Europe because they have the most GDP. They have a much higher GDP than France or the United Kingdom. The thing is, though, is that Germany doesn't have nuclear weapons, which really kind of sets them back a little bit as far as being a leader of Europe. So France is really trying to position themselves to be that leader that Europe wants. They don't really need a leader, to be quite honest. But they want one. Some of them do, and France wants to be that leader. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least in my opinion. And with that, we have reached the end of tonight's stream. I've got to thank each and every single one of y'all for watching tonight. So far tonight, we had a peak live viewership of 10.3 thousand people, and 9,000 people have watched this stream since it began tonight. I cannot say enough how honored we are to have had all of y'all on here with us tonight and get to share the news with each and every one of y'all. If it wasn't for folks like y'all who wanted to hear the news and decided out of all the channels that y'all could pick from that y'all wanted to hear it from here, we wouldn't be able to share the news with all of y'all. And we are so honored and so privileged to be in that position where we get to tell y'all what's been happening over the past 24 hours. If y'all did enjoy, make sure to subscribe because that makes us incredibly happy. And right now, the subscriber number is at 211,050, I believe, if I'm seeing that right. And make sure to subscribe because who knows? You might be the 212,000 subscriber. Who even knows? Who has an idea? Not me. But still, thank you all so much once again for watching. We will see you all tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the next 24 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine. Good night, good luck, take care, stay safe, Slava Ukraini, and long live the Lee Spring Army. The Lee Spring Army will never die.
And good night, folks, and thank you all for another great stream once again. And be sure to join me tomorrow for the Short War Summary midday. I have a feeling we'll have some good news coming out that time of the day. And also be sure to join us again tomorrow night at 10 p.m. Eastern for the next nightly war news stream. And with that, thank you all for another great one. And Slava Ukraine, Heroem Slava, and of course, good night. And you'll do what you're told.
You do what you're told.
Oh, man.
Yes.
The Lee Spring Army sends its regards.
Русский военный корабль. Предлагаю сложить оружие и сдаться. Русский военный корабль, иди нахуй.